Chapter 5:17. Han Yunxi grew nervous at Third Elder Shen's words. She immediately gestured for the servants to withdraw. Bailey Mingxiang and Su Xiaoyu were still unreconciled over Mu Ling's actions, but none of them dared to say a word in the presence of guests. They could only withdraw one by one. When they reached the courtyard, they saw Gu Beiyue there and began to pester Gu Beiyue to complain. Dr. Gu, what do you think happened to His Highness and esteemed Wang Fei this time? They're too easy to talk to, aren't they? Little Yi was the most depressed of all. He dearly wished that Mu Ling was here. With Mu Ling here, he'd have another genius teacher. Dr. Gu, that Xia fellow is so arrogant. Say, do you think esteemed Wang Fei and His Highness will kill their way to Medicine City tomorrow and wipe out their nest? Su Xiaoyu asked seriously. Dr. Gu, don't we still have proof of eldest young Master Xie's involvement in the black market? Why is esteemed Wang Fei so afraid of him? Zhao Mama asked. I don't get it either. If things get out of hand, we won't have to fear Medicine City. Chu Shifeng scratched his head in confusion. While everyone was talking at once, Bailey Mingxiang sat by Gu Beiyue's side with a silent smile. Gu Beiyue was a quiet man, so he didn't reject the fact that everyone was crowding around him. He hadn't been here long, but for some reason, everyone was looking for him as soon as something happened. Pill Fiend Pharmacy caused such a ruckus on its first day in the medical world. They'll only be ostracized by the various factions of the medical world. As for the Xia clan incident, aren't you curious why Mu Yingdong hasn't shown up? Gu Beiyue retorted. Mu Yingdong has no way out, but head elder Xia does. As soon as esteemed Wang Fei reveals eldest young Master Xie's involvement, head elder Xia will only pretend to know nothing and bite back at esteemed Wang Fei. Presumably, this is what Mu Yingdong wants to see the most because Mu Chaoran has already given them the evidence. Bailey Mingxiang said seriously. Miss Bailey is indeed smart, Gu Beiyue said with a smile. Dr. Gu, you flatter me. It's just a wild guess. Bailey Mingxiang was very humble. However, Gu Beiyue did not say anything more. He took the opportunity to get up and leave. After he walked away, Su Xiaoyu asked, Bailey Mingxiang, is Imperial Physician Gu doing well? Bailey Mingxiang nodded. Unexpectedly, Su Xiaoyu giggled. She's a good match for you. Think about it. As soon as she said this, everyone started to jeer. Bailey Mingxiang was embarrassed and angry at the same time. He angrily rebuked, You brat, don't talk nonsense. So what if I say it? Su Xiaoyu's provocative look really had Bailey Mingxiang under control. In fact, Bailey Mingxiang just did not like to be calculative with a child like her. She glared at Su Xiaoyu and turned to leave. Everyone laughed. Su Xiaoyu chased after her all the way to the backyard. Bailey Mingxiang knew that she was chasing after him. He was too lazy to pay attention to her and walked away quickly with his head lowered. Su Xiaoyu suddenly said coldly, Bailey Mingxiang, stop right there. Bailey Mingxiang heard her tone and felt that something was wrong. Su Xiaoyu was young, but she had a bad heart. She was always lecturing her and Su Xiaoyu did not like her. However, she had never spoken to her in such a tone. Bailey Mingxiang turned around and asked seriously, What's wrong with you? Su Xiaoyu looked around. After making sure that there was no one around, she hooked her finger and gestured for Bailey Mingxiang to come closer. Bailey Mingxiang patiently walked closer and bent down. Su Xiaoyu leaned close to her ear and said slowly, word by word, Bailey Mingxiang, you're shameless. You like His Highness the Duke of Qin. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Mingxiang felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was completely stunned. Su Xiaoyu's lips curved into a cold smile like a little devil. She continued, if you know what's good for you and follow Gu Beiyue, I'll pretend that I don't know anything. Otherwise, you'll suffer in the future. I didn't. Bailey Mingxiang retreated. Her heart was thumping, her face was pale. She said angrily, Su Xiaoyu, don't talk nonsense. I didn't. Did you tell Her Highness the Princess Consort? Tell me. What are you mumbling about? Are you trying to lure them all here? Su Xiaoyu reprimanded her fiercely. She was only 7 or 8 years old, but her fierceness was enough to intimidate Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang covered her mouth and was speechless for a long time. She had a guilty conscience. She had hidden it so well that she had fooled everyone, but she couldn't fool a child. A child's intuition was so frightening. Are you following Gu Beiyue? Su Xiaoyu asked stubbornly. Bailey Mingxiang didn't know how to answer her. She could only deny it. I didn't. Little you why would you think that? Who told you? I could see it. Do you dare to swear to the heavens that you didn't? Su Xiaoyu asked coldly. I dare. Bailey Mingxiang threw caution to the wind. In order to hide this secret, she dared to curse herself. I, Bailey Mingxiang, swear that if I like His Highness Duke of Qin, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Unexpectedly, Su Xiaoyu was even more vicious. You swear that if you like His Highness Duke of Qin, His Highness Duke of Qin will be torn apart by 5 horses and won't even have a burial place. Su Xiaoyu. Shut up. With a shout, Bailey Mingxiang slapped him across the face with a resounding slap. This slap was so forceful that Su Xiaoyu's face was twisted. She turned her face to the side and looked disdainfully at Bailey Mingxiang. She smiled disdainfully. You don't dare. You admit it. Bailey Mingxiang gasped for breath and took a while to calm down. What exactly do you want? You can either follow Gu Beiyue or leave. There are only 2 paths. You choose. Su Xiaoyu coldly said. What right do you have to make the choice for me? Bailey Mingxiang retorted. You can choose neither, but I'll make you regret it. Su Xiaoyu smiled. You'll tell esteemed Wang Fei. Bailey Mingxiang was actually very nervous. Are you afraid? Are you afraid that esteemed Wang Fei will see through your hypocritical face? Or are you afraid that His Highness Duke of Qin will find out? Su Xiaoyu asked with great interest. Bailey Mingxiang's hands were trembling. At this moment, her mind was completely blank. She could convince herself to give up, but she would never be able to convince herself to leave. If she could, she would have left long ago, right? Su Xiaoyu waited for a long time until her patience ran out. She roughly grabbed Bailey Mingxiang's belt and said in a low voice, Don't worry, I won't tell esteemed Wang Fei or His Highness Duke of Qin. I don't want them to be disgusted. I'll only slowly torture you. If you're not afraid, then feel free to stay. She was about to leave when she turned back and added, You'd better hide well. If esteemed Wang Fei finds out and hurts her heart, I'll definitely burn you to death. After she finished speaking, she swaggered off, leaving Bailey Mingxiang standing there in a daze, her heart thumping wildly. After an unknown amount of time, Bailey Mingxiang finally regained her senses. She ran back to her room and threw herself onto her bed, wailing loudly. Her sobs were muffled under the covers. The night was very quiet, but no one heard her. At this time, in the reception hall, Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi were both frowning. Third Elder Shin had said something unexpected. When Han Yunxi cured Long Tianma in Medical City and hid the fact that Long Tianma had been poisoned by Zhu Nixia, Third Elder Shin remembered her kindness and promised to help as long as it was within his power. Han Yunxi asked him to investigate the matter of Lady Tianxin helping Han Kongan become a director of the medical academy. At that time, Third Elder Shen found out that when Han Kongan became a director, 2 elders had passed away and the director election had been personally presided over by the 2 vice directors. With Han Kongan's medical skills and reputation, it was clear that someone had let him be elected as a director. The matter was sensitive, so Third Elder Shen couldn't directly ask the 2 vice directors. He could only investigate in secret. Who knew that after investigating for more than 2 years, he really did find some clues. Han Kongan's election as a director had something to do with Lady Lianxin, and Lady Lianxin had a close relationship with the director. In fact, the reason Han Kongan could become a director was because Lady Tianxin had asked Lady Lianxin for help. Han Yunxi had heard about this from Gu a long time ago. At that time, Gu had already told Han Yunxi that Lady Lianxin had an affair with Vice Director Lin. She didn't expect the director to be involved as well. It had to be said that Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were very shocked. This woman isn't simple. Han Yunxi glanced at Gu Qixia, who was still crouching on a nearby chair. Gu Qixia ignored her and had been staring coldly at Third Elder Shen the entire time. Han Yunxi had no choice but to withdraw her gaze. Third Elder Shen felt uncomfortable under Gu Qixia's stare, but he didn't say anything. The grudge between Gu Qixia and Medical City wasn't something he could resolve alone. She's not simple, but since she helped you back then, why doesn't she acknowledge you now? It's really puzzling. Han Yunxi understood what Third Elder Shen was implying. Back then, Lady Lianxin had helped Han Kongan obtain the director position because she was either threatened or had made a deal. She didn't sincerely help him. Han Yunxi couldn't figure it out. Mu Axayan had already changed her name to Lady Tianxin and married Han Kongan. How could she have gotten in touch with Lady Lianxin? What was the secret behind all this? Long Fei Yi also couldn't figure it out. After Mu Axayan changed her name to Tianxin, she stopped contacting Mute Granny. Mute Granny also didn't know what happened afterwards. Thus, he had no way of knowing. However, the Mu family didn't know that Mu Axayan was a descendant of the Western Qin imperial family, so he allowed Han Yunxi to pursue the matter. Han Yunxi fell silent for a while before she spoke cold. Your Highness, it looks like we'll have to negotiate with Medicine City as soon as possible. We can't keep Mu Ling waiting for too long. Long Fei Ye's lips curved into a cold smile. Today, Head Elder Xia had shown Pill Fiend Pharmacy his power in front of everyone. How could he not take revenge for Han Yunxi? Moreover, Medicine City was part of his plans to begin with. Third Elder Shen wasn't clear on the relationship between Lady Tianxin and the Mu clan, nor did he know why Han Yunxi was investigating these matters. He didn't understand, but since Han Yunxi had no intention of explaining herself, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask. Esteemed Wang Fei, this matter involves the academy head after all. The old man is really... Han Yunxi quickly cut him off and cupped her hands in a bow. Yunxi is endlessly grateful that Third Elder is willing to divulge such a private matter. Third Elder smiled and presented a congratulatory gift. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, this is a small token of my appreciation for Pill Fiend Pharmacy's grand opening. If Pill Fiend Pharmacy can obtain the Mu clan's medicine order, then Medical City. Third Elder wanted to say that Medical City didn't think highly of Pill Fiend Pharmacy because of its unclear relationship with Gu Qixia. Mu Yingdong went to persuade them and spent a lot of effort before they finally changed their view of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Third Elder was very curious as to how Qin Wangfei had managed to convince an old schemer like Mu Yingdong to do such a thing. But before he could finish his question, Gu Qixia started banging on the table, so he could only drop the subject. After chatting a bit more, he took his leave. Once he was gone, Han Yunxi walked in front of Gu Qixia. Hey, just what's going on between you and Medical City? Gu lifted his black mask to reveal his devastatingly beautiful face. He gave her a slight smile, but didn't answer. Instead, he looked towards Long Feiyi. Long Feiyi, get out and fight. Chapter 518. A Duel. Long Feiyi didn't react, but Han Yunxi jumped up from her chair. Gu, you're not thinking of a way to save Mu Linger, yet you're still in the mood for a duel, she asked angrily. She didn't know that Gu wanted to seek justice from Long Feiyi over Mute Granny's matter. She also didn't know that Gu had an undying body. Long Feiyi wanted to get to the bottom of this as well. Gu didn't have the time to care about Mu Linger. He raised his eyebrows and looked disdainfully at Long Feiyi. You don't dare. Long Feiyi didn't say a word. He stood up and left. He used his actions to tell Gu that if he wanted to fight, then fight. There was no point in wasting words. Your Highness. Han Yunxi shouted. She knew that she couldn't persuade Long Feiyi this time. She didn't want to stop Long Feiyi, but she wanted to remind him. Back in Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea, she'd said that no matter what, Gu was her savior. Long Feiyi's internal energy had completely recovered. Even two Gus combined might not be enough to deal with the sword in his hand. Han Yunxi hoped that Long Feiyi would show mercy. Of course, she also hoped that Gu's cheap mouth would know his place. She anxiously followed them out, but when she reached the courtyard, she couldn't find any sign of Long Feiyi or Gu. Where are they? Long Feiyi, Gu, get out here. Angry shouts filled the entire Pill Fiend pharmacy. Unfortunately, Han Yunxi only received silence in the night. Long Feiyi and Gu were clearly avoiding her on purpose. Han Yunxi searched the entire Pill Fiend pharmacy but couldn't find a trace of them. She could only give up. She thought that since Gu dared to come, Long Feiyi wouldn't refuse to acknowledge that life-saving grace. Long Feiyi was the first to leave Pill Fiend pharmacy and head out of the city. Gu followed behind without saying a word. Finally, Long Feiyi stopped in the wheat fields outside the city. He stood with his hands behind his back, and his black clothes seemed especially mysterious in the night. He waited. But who knew that after waiting for so long, Gu still hadn't caught up? What's going on? He had always known that Gu was following behind him. No matter how slow he was, he should have arrived. Long Feiyi was on guard. It was Gu's style. He would definitely do something like a sneak attack. However, Long Feiyi had been on guard for quite a while when he saw that Gu had arrived late and was walking towards him. Gu, what's the meaning of this? Long Feiyi asked coldly. Gu leisurely played with his slender fingers as he said, just because I'm not as fast as you, I can't be slower than you. The night is so beautiful. If this young master doesn't go for a walk, I'll be letting the heavens down. Han Yunxi was one of the few people who could truly anger Long Feiyi, but Gu was probably one as well. Long Feiyi narrowed his eyes dangerously and didn't waste time arguing. He simply took out the golden whip hidden on his body and lashed it at Gu. He didn't use a sword, but a whip. His swordsmanship was one of the best in Cloud Realm continent, but that wasn't his specialty. His whip skills were his true specialty. Straightforward enough. This old man likes it. Gu laughed loudly as he dodged Long Feiyi's whip by a hair's breadth. His figure flickered as he leapt into the air and shot out a tiny seed. The seed was the size of a grain of rice as it flew towards him. It was hard to see it with the naked eye, so it was hard to dodge. But Long Feiyi simply closed his eyes and listened. He suddenly tilted his head, and the little seed flew past his cheek and landed in the field. Whoosh! The whip moved as fast as he opened his eyes, its momentum like a rainbow. Gu didn't expect this and took the full brunt of the whip, leaving a gash on his chest. Gu looked down, his eyes narrowing into slits. But Long Fei Ye's whip didn't stop. The second whip didn't come, but a swift and fierce flick. The tiny whip seemed to be filled with boundless strength as it aimed for Gu's heart. Gu didn't dodge, but slowly raised his head. The force of the whip stirred up his long hair and red robes. His long hair was like silk and his red robes were like fire. He was unbridled in the night, just like his temperament, burning fiercely and blossoming freely. His love and hate were clear and distinct. Suddenly, the whip broke through the flames. It seemed like a light tap, but it was actually a painful blow to his heart. That's right, it was his heart. There was no mistake, no deviation at all. The vigorous strength attached to the whip poured into Gu. In an instant, he flew out like a red iris and fell into the fields. Long Fei Yi was expressionless as he elegantly withdrew his whip with a wave of his hand. He didn't move, but stood in place. His tall and proud figure stood in the vast fields under the moonlight, looking indomitable and lonely. He didn't have the joy of defeating a challenger. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking coldly in front of him. His cold face was expressionless as usual. His deep eyes were as deep as the sea. A poisonous thorn vine had unknowingly wrapped around Long Fei Ye's ankle and was climbing up his leg inch by inch. It had only wrapped around Long Fei Yi, the thorns had not yet pierced into Long Fei Yi. This was also the reason why Long Fei Yi didn't move. If he moved, he would be pricked and poisoned. Gu didn't move at all. Long Fei Ye's face was cold as he didn't move at all. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The wind blew and waves of wheat surged into the distance. Finally, the thorn vine wrapped around Long Fei Ye's entire body. Only then did Gu leisurely walk out of the wheat field. There was a long open wound on his body and a flower had bloomed on his chest. However, he looked completely fine. As he walked over, he casually played with his fingers. When he inadvertently raised his head to look at Long Fei Yi, he immediately broke into a bewitching smile. Your Highness Duke of Qin, how did you get here? Long Fei Yi naturally knew what had happened to him. In reality, his ankle had already been wrapped around by the thorn vine when he lashed out with his second whip. This strange thorn vine must have grown from the seed that Gu had just flicked out. This guy was a natural genius, and his control of medicinal herbs had reached the realm of perfection. A small thorn vine was not difficult for him. Long Fei Yi had lashed out 3 times and Gu had blocked 1. Although Gu had suffered a flesh wound, Long Fei Yi was at a disadvantage. One had to know that the thorny vines that wrapped around his body were covered in poisonous thorns. If he wasn't careful, he would definitely be poisoned. However, Long Fei Yi didn't seem to care much about the thorny vines. He glanced at Gu's chest and said coldly, "An immortal body." Long Fei Ye's tone was very calm. It wasn't a question. Gu laughed heartily. "You're the first person in the world to know, and will also be the last." As he spoke, he stretched out a finger and lightly hooked it on Long Fei Ye's thorny vines. As if they had a mind of their own, the thorny vines actually followed his movements and slowly tightened around Long Fei Yi. "It's poisonous," Gu reminded him kindly. Long Fei Yi stared coldly at his chest and asked coldly, "An immortal body? Could it be that the legendary Gu poison humans of Medicine City's poisoned sect can really be raised?" Gu avoided the question and smiled. "Long Fei Yi, are you afraid when Poison Lass isn't here? It's highly poisonous." As he spoke, he narrowed his eyes and hooked his finger. The thorny vines instantly tightened. However, at this moment, an incomparably vigorous force suddenly erupted from Long Fei Ye's body and forcibly shattered the dense thorny vines covering his body. As the thorny vines scattered on the ground, Long Fei Yi immediately soared into the sky. The newly grown thorny vines couldn't catch up to him at all. On the other hand, Long Fei soared into the air and swung his whip down at lightning speed. Just like before, Gu didn't dodge. However, Long Fei's whip didn't hit him this time. Instead, it wrapped tightly around his waist. Not good. Gu realized belatedly and wanted to break free, but it was already too late. Long Fei flew down and swung his whip handsomely over Gu's head before wrapping it around his body again. With Long Fei's strength, 2 wraps were enough to completely restrain Gu. Gu was too lazy to move and allowed Long Fei to bind him. Finally, the two of them regained their calm. This time, Long Fei still made 3 moves while Gu didn't make a single move. It wasn't that he didn't want to attack, but that Long Fei didn't give him a chance. The thorny vines silently crept toward Long Fei's feet again, but he stomped on the ground and fiercely shook them away, not daring to approach again. This time, Gu was completely at a disadvantage. The two of them stared at each other with cold eyes and didn't say a word. Smart people often didn't need to talk too much. Gu understood a principle. He could never be killed, but he could be trapped forever, living a life worse than death. The battle was already over. However, Long Fei didn't say a word. He suddenly pulled back his whip and released Gu. Gu was rather surprised. What do you mean? Han Yunxi owes you. She's returning it to you. Long Fei said. Who wants you to return it? Gu was very fierce. She asked this prince to return it. Long Fei's face was gloomy. A storm was brewing. Who wants her to return it? Gu was even angrier. Long Fei replied word by word, this prince wants her to return it. You! Gu was furious. From now on, the two of you don't owe each other anything. Long Fei declared loudly. Gu Qishao had saved Han Yunxi's life, but now he was paying it back in her place. But Gu only laughed out loud. A life for a life. Long Fei, unless you kill me, you'll never be able to return the favor. Long Fei wasn't afraid at all. Do you believe that this prince will tell all of Cloud Realm continent about your undying body tomorrow? You dare. Gu clawed at Long Fei's neck, but Long Fei immediately dodged. Do you dare this prince? Long Fei, don't think I can't do anything to you just because you killed Mute Granny. Gu said sternly. Long Fei grew alarmed. Who told you Mute Granny was dead? Only Chu Shifeng and Tang Li knew about Mute Granny's death. How did this guy know? Gu's lips curved up into a cold smile. Do you still dare? Long Fei lashed out with his whip, but Gu didn't dodge. He laughed out loud. Even if you trap me, Han Yunxi will find out all the same. How about we make a bet? Just what do you want? Long Fei asked. Gu reached out to grab the whip, but Long Fei simply shook him off. Get to the point. Gu Qishao smiled wickedly. Chapter 519. Gu smiled wickedly. Does your Highness Duke of Qin want this young master to state his conditions? You can choose not to, Long Fei replied. Your Highness Duke of Qin means, we can't come to an agreement. Gu smiled again. Of these two men, one loved to talk glibly, while the other cherished his words like gold. One laughed like a second nature, while the other had been expressionless for years. How were they supposed to talk? Long Fei wished he could just leave, but he couldn't. More than that, he wanted to kill Gu with a single blow, but that was even more impossible. Gu's threat just then might not have been real. It was very possible that it was just a threat, but he couldn't afford to gamble on it. Of course, Gu Qishao wanted nothing more than to take advantage of Long Fei, but he knew it was impossible. He couldn't afford to gamble on his undying body either. Once this secret was exposed, how many people would come looking for him? He might even become the public enemy of all of Cloud Realm continent and become a rat that everyone wanted to beat up. Hadn't the poison sect been destroyed by the medical academy because the goo poison was too dangerous? Thinking up to here, Gu Chishao's smiling eyes flickered with a touch of sorrow. Death was a man's greatest fear, but immortality was his greatest sorrow. State your conditions. Long Fei Yi was too lazy to argue. Gu got straight to the point. Just two. First, keep the secret of my undying body. Second, Gu's expression turned vicious. Second, help me destroy Medical City. Medical City. Long Fei Yi laughed. What, you don't dare? Gu was disdainful. Medical City was Cloud Realm continent's #1 power. Leaving aside the medical field, its wealth and martial prowess couldn't be underestimated. A single city was enough to form a country of its own. Long Fei Yi had never been afraid of anything in his life. He was curious about the grudges between Gu and Medical City. Where did your undying body come from? What does it have to do with the poison sect? Long Fei Yi asked. Long Fei Yi, you only need to agree or not. Everything else has nothing to do with you. Gu's face was gloomy, and he no longer smiled. Knowing that he wouldn't say anything, Long Fei Yi didn't pursue the matter. Instead, he asked, what can you promise this prince? Keep your mouth shut about Mute Granny. At this point, Gu's lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. As for the matter of the antidote, this young master will admit defeat. These two matters are one and the same. Long Fei Yi said. As soon as he said that, Gu knew what he meant. Those are two different things. They're not the same thing. He had made two conditions to Long Fei Yi, but Long Fei Yi had only made one condition for him. If the antidote was included, both of them had made two conditions, which was fair. Unfortunately, Long Fei Yi was far more shrewd than the businessman Ouyang Ningnua, much less Gu. He said, Gu, you schemed against this prince regarding the antidote for broomcorn millet poison, but this prince didn't pursue the matter. What else do you want to pursue? Gu's face darkened, but he had nothing to say. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi scoffed, you're digging your own grave. If not for the matter of the antidote, Long Fei Yi would never have guessed that the black-robed man who had barged into the hidden pavilion was Gu. Nor would he have known that Gu had an undying body. Gu Chishao had thoroughly lost this battle. Gu was silent for a long while before he spoke. You're just relying on the fact that Han Yunxi likes you. Given that poison lass's intelligence, if she hadn't been bewitched by Long Fei Yi, how could she not have seen through the trick? Stay away from her. Long Fei Yi narrowed his eyes, a threatening aura emanating from his entire body. Gu was disdainful. Why should I? Without a doubt, these words angered Long Fei Yi. He moved quickly and grabbed Gu by the neck. Gu didn't take it seriously at all. Instead, he turned serious and asked Long Fei Yi, why should you? Han Yunxi is this prince's wife. Long Fei Yi laughed coldly as he retorted to Gu. Why should you question this prince? Gu Chishao laughed out loud. Long Fei, did you marry her? During the grand wedding, the Duke of Qin's estate had sent a wedding nanny to the Han estate to pick up the bride. It was even Han Kongan who'd hired the bridegroom. On the day of the wedding, Han Yunxi had been turned away at the gates. Her words, you missed the auspicious hour, come back tomorrow, had become the biggest joke in all of Tianning. If Han Yunxi hadn't been smart enough to spend the night at the Duke of Qin's estate, would she really have been able to enter? How would she have gotten off the sedan chair? How would she have entered the Duke of Qin's estate? Long Fei Yi, did you marry Han Yunxi? Did you? Marry, what did it mean to marry and take a daughter? Fetching a woman was called marriage. Faced with Gu's questions, Long Fei suddenly fell silent. But Gu wasn't done yet. He lowered his voice and asked again, Long Fei, what did Mute Granny tell you? Without a doubt, Mute Granny knew the secret of Han Yunxi's origins. Long Fei had imprisoned Mute Granny, cured her of broomcorn millet poison, and then killed her. What was he trying to hide from Han Yunxi? When Long Fei didn't answer, Gu asked again, it's not just about the poison sect, is it? Gu had always assumed that Han Yunxi's origins were only related to the poison sect. He'd always wondered whether Han Yunxi's birth father was a member of the poison sect, or Han Kongan. However, Long Fei's attitude towards Mute Granny, as well as Third Elder Shen's words about Lady Lianxin, made him realize that Long Fei hadn't hidden the poison sect from Han Yunxi. If it wasn't about the poison sect, then it had to be something else. Long Fei evaded Gu's question. This prince will protect your secret of immortality. You've forgotten about Mute Granny. That's settled then. In other words, there was no room for discussion about destroying Medical City. However, Gu didn't pursue the matter. He stopped Long Fei and said, Long Fei, don't you feel guilty for deceiving Han Yunxi like this? Although Gu didn't want to admit it, he knew better than anyone how much that stupid girl Han Yunxi liked Long Fei. Wasn't it precisely because she liked him that he couldn't go all out against Long Fei? Long Fei's entire being grew still, his tall figure seeming even lonelier. He still didn't answer, but strode past Gu Qishao. Gu was as stubborn as a child as he chased after him again. Long Fei, what right do you have? He'd been deceiving her to begin with, so he owed her everything. What right did he have to keep his distance from her? Gu taunted coldly, Long Fei, what are you afraid of? That girl will really leave with me one day. This young master is telling you, she'll leave with me one day. Was he afraid because he had a guilty conscience? Shut your mouth for today's agreement. Long Fei didn't explain. He shoved Gu aside and left. However, he hadn't taken more than a few steps when he turned back. Gu, she won't. She never will. Gu snorted disdainfully. He rubbed his chin and thought about Mute Granny. He recalled what had happened in the poison sect sky pit. That poison beast had actually recognized Han Yunxi as its master. It seemed that Han Yunxi's father was most likely from the poison sect. However, aside from Long Fei, only Mu Yingdong knew what kind of person he was. Of course, he was merely curious. He'd already given up on the poison woman that night at the Han estate. As Gu pondered, he suddenly recalled the white-robed man from the Shadow Clan. A terrifying thought flashed through his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. How is that possible? He muttered to himself. Even he found his thoughts laughable. That Shadow Clan fellow had only gone to the sky pit for the poison beast. Meanwhile, Long Fei was on his way back to the city, mulling over another matter. Gu claimed that he'd killed Mute Granny, but the truth was that Mute Granny had hanged herself and was buried near the hidden pavilion. Did Gu run into Mute Granny's corpse, or did Gu lie to him? After returning to the city, the first thing Long Fei did was find Chu Shifeng to examine Mute Granny's corpse. After that, he went to find Han Yunxi, only to find out that Han Yunxi had gone back to the Duke of Qin's estate. By the time he returned to the Duke of Qin's estate, Han Yunxi had already fallen asleep. How could this woman be so assured? Who knows what she'll ask tomorrow? Long Fei stood at the bottom of Leisurely Cloud Pavilion, seemingly in a bad mood. After some hesitation, he decided not to go upstairs. He was about to leave when Bailey Mingxiang returned. Bailey Mingxiang had just returned from Pill Fiend Pharmacy, her eyes red and puffy. As soon as she saw Long Fei and Zhao Mama, her heart flustered and bowed. Your Highness Duke of Qin. Long Fei didn't take her to heart and strode away without a word. Zhao Mama's sharp eyes, however, immediately asked, Mingxiang, are you crying? Who bullied you? Bailey Mingxiang had purposely returned late because she didn't want to run into Zhao Mama. But the more she was afraid, the harder it was for her to hide. Today is my mother's birthday. When I thought of my childhood, I felt a bit sad, Bailey Mingxiang replied. Zhao Mama didn't know much about the details, so she assumed it was true. She quickly comforted Bailey Mingxiang and told him to sleep in her rooms tonight. As for Su Xiaoyu, ever since Pill Fiend Pharmacy was built, she often spent the night there, researching medicinal ingredients. It was common for her to not return home. At this time, Su Xiaoyu was indeed in Pill Fiend Pharmacy. She was alone in the pharmacy, looking through medicinal books as she searched for herbs. She could spend most of the day studying a small leaf in her hand. This little girl was truly talented and diligent. Unfortunately, she had a bad heart. Even if she became skilled in medicine in the future, she might not be willing to help others. At this time, Lil Thing was right next to her. Lil Thing didn't like this girl at first, but because it often came to the pharmacy in the middle of the night for supper and often ran into Su Xiaoyu, the two of them gradually became familiar with each other. Of course, Lil Thing didn't know that Su Xiaoyu had pushed Bailey Mingxiang to Gu Beiyue. In the dead of night, Pill Fiend Pharmacy and the Duke of Qin's mansion were quiet. All of South Ning City seemed to have fallen asleep. Everyone thought that Mu Ling had been taken away from South Ning City, but in reality, Mu Ling, and head elder Xie's group were still at the inn. Mu Ling, was unconscious on the bed, while head elder Xie was drinking tea and chatting with a masked man in black next door. It wasn't clear what they were talking about, but there was a lot of laughter. The masked man only left when the sky was about to brighten. However, as soon as he left, another young master arrived. He lightly knocked on the door. Head elder Xie, this one is Ouyang Ningnuo. I wonder if it's convenient for you to have a cup of tea. Chapter 520. Ouyang Ningnuo. Head elder Xie was stunned and quickly opened the door. Head elder Ouyang, you have urgent business in the middle of the night. Although Medicine City controlled most of Cloud Realm Continent's medicinal ingredients market, most of the real business depended on Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Head elder Xie and Ouyang Ningnuo were close friends. It's nothing urgent. I just happened to pass by and knew you'd be staying here tonight, so I came up for a cup of tea. Ouyang Ningnuo was very casual as he sat down to brew tea. Head elder Xie fell silent. Ouyang Ningnuo was a busy man who valued time like gold. How could a visit in the middle of the night be just a coincidence? There had to be something important going on, too. Ouyang Ningnuo glanced at the used teacup on the side before quietly drinking a few cups. Finally, head elder Xie couldn't take it anymore. Did head elder Ouyang come for Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Ouyang Ningnuo wanted to speak, but stopped himself with a smile and shook his head. Head elder Ouyang, old man doesn't treat you as an outsider, but you treat him like an outsider. Just what happened? Head elder Xie grew unhappy. Ouyang Ningnuo smiled helplessly and refused to speak. Could it be that you have business dealings with Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Head elder Xie asked seriously. From what he understood, Ouyang Ningnuo had long wanted to do business with Medicine Ghost Valley, but had been rejected time and time again. Judging from his behavior, it was very likely that he'd colluded with Pill Fiend Pharmacy and put in a good word for it. Ouyang Ningnuo nodded decisively. Exactly. Head elder Xie laughed coldly and got straight to the point. Ouyang, we can talk about anything else, but there's no room for discussion. Although the Xia clan had been currying favor with the Mu clan over the years, that wasn't their intention at all. It was the Mu clan who'd gone too far. The Wang clan might have declined, but they still had deep pockets. The Mu clan didn't dare to bully them too much, so they could only target the Xia clan. In name, they were working together against the Wang clan, but in reality, they'd been robbing the Xia clan of their fields and medicine storehouses. Moreover, the Mu clan had been eyeing the position of head elder for a long time now and caused him plenty of trouble. Thus, now that Mu Linger had fallen into the hands of the Council of Elders, he wouldn't let the matter rest. Today, even if he had to offend the Duke of Qin, he had to take Mu Linger away. Pharmacists were the soul of a medicinal family. Mu Linger was the reason why the Mu family had risen to prominence in recent years. As long as Mu Ling was gone, he wanted to see how long the Mu family could remain arrogant. Ouyang Ning Nuo smiled even more helplessly. He walked over to Guildmaster Xia and whispered something into his ear. Guildmaster Xia's displeased expression slowly turned into one of surprise. You said you like Mu Ling, President Xia had a look of disbelief on his face. Ouyang. Aren't your jokes a little too boring? Unexpectedly, Ouyang Ning Nuo replied seriously, President Xia, I'm not joking. He paused for a while, his lips curling into a self-deprecating smile. He didn't seem at all like a businessman who could shake Cloud Realm Continent's business world, but a shy young man. I won't hide it from you, but this one has admired Miss Ling, for a long time. I've come in the middle of the night for no other reason than to ask Head Elder Xia to give this one some face and not make things too difficult for that girl. Guildmaster Xia was so stunned that he couldn't speak. Ouyang Ning Nuo continued, Head Elder Xia, Ling is still a little girl in the end. She doesn't know much about the grudges between our two clans, so she's innocent. As he spoke, he took out a contract. Head Elder Xia, this is a commission agreement signed by the Xia clan's head not too long ago. It stipulates that the Xia clan's profits from selling medicinal ingredients to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium for the next 3 years will be split 50-50. If President Xia is willing to make things easier for us, this one is willing to give the Xia clan 20% of the profits and change the contract to 70-30%. Guildmaster Xia was even more stunned than before. 20% of the profits was no small sum, and it was for 3 years. As expected of Ouyang Ning Nuo, he's so generous. Still, Guildmaster Xia was very clear that Ouyang Ning Nuo's demands wouldn't be low. He remained silent. But Ouyang Ning Nuo simply said, Don't worry, President Xia. This one only asks that you don't use torture. He pushed the contract in front of Guildmaster Xia and said sincerely, This one's feelings for Miss Ling, are true. His attitude made Guildmaster Xia feel like he was receiving a betrothal gift for his granddaughter. Finally, he wavered. That's it. Ouyang Ning Nuo teased. Or perhaps, President Xia is willing to marry Miss Ling, to this one. His words sounded like a joke, but Guildmaster Xia knew that Ouyang Ning Nuo had such intentions. Anyone with a brain couldn't help but start scheming. If Mu Linger married off to Ouyang Ning Nuo, how many benefits would they get? Guildmaster Xia was a shrewd man, so he naturally knew how to calculate. After all, Mu Linger's marriage wasn't something the Council of Elders could decide on, but she was in their hands. They could definitely pressure the Mu clan. Guildmaster Xia got straight to the point. Ouyang, just what do you mean by this? You're still beating around the bush with old man. Ouyang Ning Nuo knew that his probing had hit the right spot. Guildmaster Xia's heart had been moved. He got straight to the point. As long as President Xia has a way to convince the Mu clan to marry Miss Ling, to me, I promise to sell the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients unconditionally within 5 years. At the very least, the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients will take up 50% of the market. Guildmaster Xia was not only moved by his words, but pleasantly surprised as well. The three great clans of Medicine City all sold their medicinal ingredients to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. All three clans had the same type of ingredient, but Cloud Realm Trade Consortium had the final say on who to sell. Naturally, this involved the distribution of profits. For example, the Wang, Xia, and Mu clans all sold their scorpions to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium at the same time. But because the Mu clans' costs were low, they had the capital to give up more profits to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Thus, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium chose to sell the Mu clan scorpions. Within 3 years, everyone in Cloud Realm continent knew about the Mu clan scorpions, but not the Wang or Xia clans. If Ouyang Ning Nuo could sell the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients unconditionally for the next 5 years, then the Xia clan would have a chance to surpass the Mu clan even without a genius pharmacist like Mu Ling. This matter requires further consideration. If you have time, you can set a time to come to Medicine City to discuss the details, Guild Master Xia relented. Alright, I'll definitely pay you a visit. Ouyang Ning Nuo was very happy. He casually picked up the contract on the table, but Guild Master Xia was about to pick it up as well. In his moment of awkwardness, Ouyang Ning Nuo beat him to it. This. Guild Master Xia was rather displeased. Ouyang Ning Nuo didn't feel awkward at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "Since President Xia has the heart, then we'll discuss this matter at length." Just like that, Ouyang Ning Nuo left happily with the contract. Guild Master Xia's face was half black as he regretted giving in too quickly. Ouyang Ning Nuo had figured out his true intentions. "President, that brat's too petty. What sincerity! I think he's even willing to use marriage as a bargaining chip." The retainer couldn't take it anymore. Let's see how he talks to old man when the time comes. Guild Master Xia said angrily. "President, then what about the Duke of Kong?" The retainer murmured. Before Ouyang Ning Nuo's arrival, Northern Li's Duke of Kong had come to discuss Mu Ling's marriage as well. He expressed his desire for the Council of Elders to support his crown prince's decision to take Mu Ling as an imperial concubine. The Duke of Kang's conditions were also very tempting. The Duke of Kong said that as long as the Council of Elders could facilitate the marriage, Northern Li's imperial clan would be willing to open up the northern snowy regions to the Xia clan and allow them to plant medicinal ingredients there. Northern Li had Cloud Realm Continent's only snowy plateau, which was the best place to plant medicinal ingredients. The three great clans of Medicine City had coveted it for years. Guild Master Xia furrowed his brows in silence. To him, Ouyang Ning Nuo and Juni Xia were like a fish and a bear's paw, but he couldn't have his cake and eat it too. Of course, whether he wanted the fish or the bear's paw, he had to find a way to force the Mu clan to agree to the marriage. Moreover, he had to be on guard against Mu Ling continuing to make medicinal ingredients for the Mu clan after she got married. It's difficult. Guild Master Xia muttered to himself. President Xia muttered to himself. From this night onwards, he was probably going to have insomnia. President, that brat Ouyang Ning Nuo has always worked with the Mu clan. I think the Duke of Kong is much more reliable than him. The retainer said. Juni Xia is reliable, but don't forget that Juni Xia is the head of the 100 Poison sect. Medical City is keeping a close eye on him. Guild Master Xia said simply. Even if he took the top spot in Medicine City, it'd be meaningless if he offended Medical City. President, the Duke of Kong is the head of the 100 Poison sect, but the Northernly Crown Prince isn't. The retainer reminded hastily. Guild Master Xia nodded thoughtfully. Actually, he still favored Juni Xia in his heart, but he had no idea that Juni Xia had long been in cahoots with Muing Dong. Northern Li's imperial clan had long opened up the snowy plateau to the Mu clan. Their first batch of medicinal ingredients was about to mature as well. Currently, Juni Xie was in Muing Dong's rooms, drinking merrily with him. Old man promises that old thing Xie Dei will definitely agree to such a huge temptation. Muing Dong was very happy. He'd lured Xie Dei to Pill Fiend Pharmacy to capture Mu Ling, precisely because he had a backup plan. Otherwise, how could he be willing to lose a genius pharmacist for nothing? Now, all he had to do was wait for the Council of Elders to pressure the Mu clan so that he could legitimately agree to marry Mu Ling, to Northern Li's crown prince. Juni Xie was also very confident in this matter and had no intention of discussing it. Instead, he was more concerned about the poison pond in Medicine Forest. Is there still no sign of it? Muing Dong shook his head. You're talking about the poisonous grass in Han Yunxi's poisonous pond. This old man can't figure it out. Could it be that she's already been to Medicine Forest? Juni Xie shook his head. This matter must be investigated thoroughly for this prince. Even his master couldn't cure the poison in his shoulder. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the poison had been cultivated in Medicine Forest's poison pond. Han Yunxi had also mentioned this when she'd provoked him. His master had always wanted him to properly control Northern Li's horse farms and forbade him from interfering with Medical City and Long Fei Ye's relationship with Han Yunxi. When he returned to South Ning Prefecture, he used the excuse of investigating the poison pond in Medicine Forest to gain his master's permission. How Muing Dong planned to retaliate against Pill Fiend Pharmacy and whether head elder Xie would agree to Juni Xie's request or Ouyang Ningnuo's request would all have to wait until they returned to Medicine City. Meanwhile, at the Duke of Qin's estate, Han Yunxi hadn't slept the entire night as she pondered how to save Mu Ling. Early the next morning, she went to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. She didn't ask about the duel between Long Fei Yi and Gu, which made both parties very uneasy. They both appeared in front of her at the same time. Chapter 521. Han Yunxi seriously sized up Long Fei Yi, then looked up and down at Gu. She saw that both of them were in good spirits. Long Fei Yi was dressed in black, looking handsome and mysterious. Gu was dressed in a black robe, looking tall and proud. It seemed that both of them were fine. Han Yunxi secretly rejoiced. She thought that the result of the duel should be as she had expected. Long Fei Yi won against Gu, but he remembered that Gu had saved her, so he showed mercy and stopped there. Long Fei Yi still had this bit of grace. Gu's martial arts were far inferior to Long Fei Ye's, and even inferior to Juni Xie's. Therefore, even if Gu knew the art of poison, the speed and strength of the poison were restricted by his martial arts, so it could not escape Long Fei Ye's eyes. Han Yunxi had already guessed it in her heart, but she still deliberately teased, Long Fei Yi, did you win? Long Fei Yi acted as if he did not hear her and sat expressionlessly beside her to make tea. Han Yunxi did not let it go. She moved closer. Who won? Long Fei Yi still did not speak. Han Yunxi actually snatched his teacup. I'm asking you. Gu watched from the side. The more he watched, the more astonished he became. When did this girl become so bold? Didn't she act like a little wife in front of Long Fei Yi before? Long Fei Yi was not angry that his teacup was snatched away. He actually took Han Yunxi's half-finished tea and drank it. As for Han Yunxi's question, he still did not answer. Strictly speaking, the duel between him and Gu Qishao last night didn't end in a clear victor. How should he explain it to Han Yunxi? Last night, both of them came back separately and did not discuss what to say. Long Fei Yi was still hesitating, but Gu said confidently, he won. Han Yunxi was not surprised, but Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows and looked at Gu. He remembered that I saved your life, so he didn't kill me. Gu Qishao accepted his loss. His heart didn't ache, but for some reason, the open wound on his chest was extremely painful. He really wanted to say that it was a tie. Even if Long Fei Yi didn't help her repay the debt of saving her life, they were at most tied. She was only bound by the long whip and couldn't die, so how could it be considered a loss? Besides, Long Fei Yi might not be able to bind him for long. Unfortunately, some secrets were destined to rot in the stomach. Gu sat down casually and crossed his legs. He had obviously admitted defeat, but he acted as if he was number one in the world. He was especially arrogant. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything, but poured a cup of tea and placed it next to him. Gu generously picked it up. Thanks. You're welcome, Long Fei Yi said indifferently. Han Yunqi saw all of this and finally felt relieved. No matter what, at least she didn't lose Gu as a friend. Only by being united could they face the enemy together. Han Yunqi impatiently asked, let's discuss how to rescue Mu Linger. Every day that Mu Linger stayed in Medicine City was another day of suffering. Not to mention, Mu Ingdong was not easy to deal with. This time, he didn't show up and allowed Head Elder Xia to take Mu Linger away. There must be something going on here. If we take down Medical City, Xia Dei and Mu Ingdong will obediently lick our feet. What's a single Mu Linger compared to that? Gu Qishao looked provocatively at Long Fei. This was both sarcasm and provocation. Without Poison Girl, he wouldn't be able to deal with Medical City. Long Fei Yi replied with 2 words, you're going. You've already beaten this young master, so of course you're going. Gu was very modest. What does your pill fiend pharmacy's business have to do with this prince? Long Fei Yi retorted. Long Fei Yi, you said it yourself. It's best if you don't interfere in this matter. Gu was delighted. He was more than happy to join forces with Poison Girl. However, Long Fei Yi indifferently replied, this prince is fine with anything. Of course, this didn't mean that he was going to follow Gu's wishes. Rather, it was up to him whether he interfered or not. Han Yunqi's face darkened as she listened. When did His Highness, the taciturn Duke of Qin, start arguing with Gu's cheap mouth? But, it seemed that Long Fei Yi was quite capable of dealing with Gu's mouth. Gu narrowed his eyes and was about to retort when Gu Beiyue suddenly appeared. Compared to sitting here and watching Gu and Long Fei Yi bicker, Han Yunqi preferred to chat with Gu Beiyue. Gu Beiyue was an old hand in the medical community, so he might be able to give some good suggestions. But Gu Beiyue came with unexpected news. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's Ouyang Ningnua is requesting an audience. Last time, it was Ouyang Ningnua who'd told Chu Tianyin about the gunpowder. Otherwise, Chu Tianyin wouldn't have acted so quickly and used the crossbow archers to kidnap Han Yunqi. Naturally, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi would pin this debt on Ouyang Ningnua's head. Long Fei Yi's lips curved up coldly, while Han Yunqi gave a cold snort. Since he dares to show up, let him in. Very soon, Ouyang Ningnua strode in openly, dressed in scholarly and refined robes. Those who didn't know better might mistake him for the young master of some scholarly family. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei. He bowed humbly and politely, not missing a single person in the room. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, Imperial Physician Gu. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi both wore cold expressions and didn't reply. Gu didn't think much of the man either, and simply crossed his legs to play with his bony hands. President Ouyang, Gu Beiyue bowed as well. You may call this one Dr. Gu. This one is no longer working at the Imperial Physician Courtyard. Compared to Gu Beiyue's modesty and gentleness, Ouyang Ningnua's refinement was especially hypocritical. So. Then this one will call you Dr. Gu from now on. Ouyang Ningnua smiled. Gu Beiyue smiled and nodded, but didn't say anything else. Just like that, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi took the main seats, while Gu and Gu Beiyue sat on either side. No one invited Ouyang Ningnuo to sit. Ouyang Ningnuo had seen all sorts of situations in his life, so he remained calm and composed, not revealing the slightest trace of awkwardness. Esteemed Wang Fei, Your Excellency Pill Fiend, this one has come to discuss a business deal. Would the two of you be interested? He asked earnestly. Han Yunxi stared at him icily, but didn't say anything. As for Gu, he seemed more interested in his own hands and hadn't even spared Ouyang Ningnuo a single glance. After a moment of silence, the atmosphere grew even more awkward. However, no one present felt the slightest bit of awkwardness. Each one was calmer than the other. This business deal naturally has something to do with Medicine City, Ouyang Ningnuo probed. Unfortunately, none of the four present reacted. A complicated look flitted across Ouyang Ningnuo's eyes, but he continued with a smile. This one has an 80% chance of rescuing Mulinger. The remaining 20% requires the assistance of esteemed Wang Fei and Your Excellency Pill Fiend. He had already said so much, but still, no one paid any attention to him. Ha! It looks like esteemed Wang Fei and Your Excellency Pill Fiend have already given up on Mulinger. It looks like this one has worried for nothing. Ouyang Ningnuo turned to leave, but Han Yunxi and Gu Beiyue still didn't ask him to stay. They allowed him to leave. Even though he knew that they wouldn't give up on Mulinger, Ouyang Ningnuo couldn't help but lose his cool in the face of their silence. He turned around and said, Esteemed Wang Fei, Your Excellency Pill Fiend. If you don't act now, Mulinger will be married off to the Northernly Imperial family in less than a month. What? Han Yunxi shot to her feet. Ouyang Ningnuo, what do you mean by this? She hadn't planned on paying any attention to this guy, but who knew that he would bring such terrifying news? When did the Northernly Imperial family get involved in this matter? Han Yunxi was shocked, but she quickly thought of Zhu Nixia. Zhu Nixia had been in cahoots with Mu Yingdong for a long time. Wasn't it all thanks to Mu Yingdong that Zhu Nixia had been able to freely enter and exit the medicine forest and grow new poison plants in the mysterious poison pond that Mu Yingdong had opened up? When he saw Han Yunxi stomp her feet, Ouyang Ningnuo knew that his trip today hadn't been in vain. Esteemed Wang Fei, may I have a cup of tea? Ouyang Ningnuo was here to ask for a seat. He had come here with the intention of having a long and detailed discussion. But Han Yunxi only replied coldly, Just what do you want to do? Get to the point. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one sincerely wishes to cooperate with Pill Fiend Pharmacy. We must sit down and discuss the details. Ouyang Ningnuo felt helpless. After so many negotiations, this was the first time he didn't even have a seat. At this moment, Gu Qisha glanced back and said coldly, There's no need to talk. Only Pill Fiend Pharmacy can sell my medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients. Han Yunxi immediately understood. So Ouyang Ningnuo wanted to sell medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients. You're thinking too much. Han Yunxi gave a cold snort. Medicine City had a monopoly on the supply of medicinal ingredients, while Cloud Realm Trade Consortium controlled the market for them. Pill Fiend Pharmacy had finally managed to squeeze in a share of the profits, so how could it work with the consortium again? In the future, Pill Fiend Pharmacy would expand and open more and more branch stores. Once it expanded its cooperation with Medicine City, it would definitely be able to contend against the consortium. It wasn't Medicine City that feared Pill Fiend Pharmacy the most, but Ouyang Ningnuo. Ouyang Ningnuo pretended to be mysterious and sighed lightly. What a pity for Miss Ling Er. Mu Ling Er's in the hands of the Council of Elders. How could Mu Yingdong marry her off just because he wanted to? Han Yunxi probed. If Mu Yingdong wasn't confident, why would he allow head elder Xia to bring her back to Medicine City? Ouyang Ningnuo retorted. Where did you get that information? How certain are you that you can save Mu Ling her? Han Yunxi was only probing. There was no way she'd cooperate with Ouyang Ningnuo. But Ouyang Ningnuo didn't say a word. Since esteemed Wang Fei has no plans to cooperate, then this one will take his leave. Besides Medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients, everything else is negotiable. Han Yunxi finally relented. Esteemed Wang Fei, if you've thought things through, you can come find this one at any time within a month. Ouyang Ningnuo had already reached the door when he turned back and added, of course, after a month, no matter how sincere esteemed Wang Fei is, this one will be powerless to help. So speaking, he strode out the door with a sinister smile on his lips. His ultimate goal was indeed the Medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients, but today he wasn't here to talk about cooperation, but to deliver a message to these people. He, Ouyang Ningnuo, had been in the business world for many years and loved to sit on top of the mountain and reap the spoils of war. He believed that with Long Fei Ye's skills and Han Yunxi's intelligence, they'd definitely be able to take care of Jun Yixia. He was looking forward to a month's time. After Ouyang Ningnuo left, Han Yunxi and the rest of the group remained silent as they exchanged glances. This is going to be troublesome. Chapter 522. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's guest hall was silent. In the end, it was Long Fei Yi who spoke first. Gu Beiyue, what do you think of this matter? Gu Beiyue stood up. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei, I'm an expert in treating illnesses and saving lives, but this, I really don't understand. There are still a few prescriptions waiting for me to review, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, he really left. As a doctor, he naturally didn't understand much, but if he didn't, why didn't he leave earlier? Long Fei Yi had intentionally asked him, but he had intentionally avoided the question. Long Fei Yi knew what was going on, so perhaps he was also on his guard. Han Yunxi didn't think too much about it. Her mind was currently focused on Mu Linger. She hesitated for a moment, then seriously said, Old ghost, Mu Linger should be out of South Ning City by now. Can you escort her back to Medicine City? The 3-month agreement could guarantee that Mu Linger wouldn't die. Once Mu Linger returned to the Council of Elders, even if they punished her, she would still have the protection of the Mu clan. However, the people escorting her back were all from the Xia clan. With head elder Xia's attitude, he would definitely allow his subordinates to lynch Mu Linger. The Mu clan had been tyrannical for so many years that even the smaller clans were filled with resentment, let alone the Xia clan. How could they not take advantage of such a good opportunity to vent their anger? If he took off his black robes, no one would know that he was Gu Qisha. Even if he was discovered, it wouldn't matter. Han Yunxi was so serious, but who knew that Gu would take off his black hood and joke, Poison girl, how am I old? How could this guy still have the mood to joke around at a time like this? Han Yunxi was furious. Do I have to call you a brat? Gu was at a loss for words. You go with them. Once the Wang and Xia clans arrived to discuss the price of the herbs, His Highness and I will also make a trip to Medicine City, Han Yunxi said seriously. Regardless of what Ouyang Ningnuo was plotting, their top priority right now was to prevent Guild Master Xia from being bewitched by Jun Yixia and forcing the Mu clan to marry Mu Ling, off to the northernly imperial family. With their current opposing positions, if they directly told President Xia that Jun Yixia and the Mu family had colluded, that old thing would definitely not believe it. Instead, he would suspect that they were trying to sow discord. However, if they could inform the Xia family about this through the Wang family, things would be completely different. Gu didn't seem too happy about it. He glanced at Long Fei Yi and said, with your Highness Duke of Qin's abilities, wouldn't it be easier to kidnap someone without anyone knowing? What's the point of going through so much trouble with those people? Long Fei sat on one side, drinking his tea without a change in expression. Han Yunshi couldn't help but roll her eyes and say angrily, "Then how do you want Mu Ling, to live from now on? Is she going to hide in her room and never see anyone? Or is she going to change her identity and change her appearance? If they could use force, how could she and Long Fei allow Guild Master Xia to take Mu Ling, away when she was already at Pill Fiend Pharmacy's gates?" Gu was at a loss for words again. "Let's get to the point. Are you going or not?" Han Yunshi was a little fierce. Gu faintly said, "I'll go. But you have to promise me that you'll never tell Mu Ling, that I'm Gu Qisha. If that girl found out that he was Gu Qisha, how could he continue to live in Pill Fiend Pharmacy after rescuing her?" Han Yunshi was stunned. She immediately stood up and solemnly raised her hand to swear, "From today until the day I die, I will never tell Mu Ling, a single word about your identity. Otherwise, Pill Fiend Pharmacy won't be able to earn a single cent." Gu mulled over her words and vaguely felt that something was wrong. Han Yunshi pretended to be angry and kicked his leg. "Is this enough? Why aren't you going after her?" Gu couldn't care less. When had he ever been serious with Han Yunshi? He immediately stood up. "Don't worry, only I can bully that girl." Then he left, waving as he walked. "Poison girl, see you in Medicine City." Seeing Gu Qishao's carefree and unrestrained form, Long Fei's lips rose into a gloating smile. "Idiot." Han Yunshi looked at him suspiciously. Long Fei immediately withdrew his smile and awkwardly cleared his throat. Ouyang Ning Nuo seems to know a lot about the Mu clan and Jun Xie's shady dealings. This guy has deep connections with the three great clans of Medicine City. He has many eyes and ears. Even the most secretive transactions in the black market couldn't be hidden from him, let alone something like this. Han Yunshi said, then asked, "Your Highness, do you have a plan for this?" Ouyang Ning Nuo had always wanted to make a move against Medicine City, so how could he let Jun Xia off the hook so easily? "Let's wait for the Wang and Xia clans to arrive. Write a letter to urge them," Long Fei said. With Gu escorting Mu Ling, Han Yunshi's anxious heart calmed down. She knew that no matter how urgent this matter was, it had to be planned slowly. After all, their opponents this time weren't ordinary people. "All right." She was already at the door when she turned back to look at him. "Long Fei, you look very good when you smile." She smiled faintly and turned to leave. Soon after, she heard a coughing sound behind her. Long Fei had choked on his tea. Han Yunshi wrote a letter to Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming on the same day. Previously, she had agreed to let them negotiate a price before coming to her for evidence of the black market transactions. Now, she wanted them to arrive within 10 days. Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming were still trying to get to know each other, but after receiving the letter, they met almost every day. They even invited a number of influential figures from the Wang and Xia clans to participate in the negotiations. Apparently, the Wang and Xia clan heads had met in private before they arrived. As for what they talked about, no one knew. Over the past 10 days, Han Yunshi had been paying close attention to Mu Ling, and the Mu clan's movements. She'd thought that Ouyang Ningruo would pay them a visit, but he hadn't shown up again. Long Fei was still the same as before. No matter what happened, he was always calm and indifferent. Before Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming's arrival, apart from Han Yunshi, he'd never brought up this matter of his own accord. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was Han Yunshi's business, so he had his own matters to attend to. Over the past 10 days, the authorities and aristocratic families of the 3 central prefectures and the various cities in Jiangnan joined forces to establish an organization called the South Central Governor's Office. They elected Su Liaoding, the prefectural governor of South Ning Prefecture, as the new governor. General Bailey reorganized the major armies and reissued the Tiger Tally to serve the new governor. After all, Long Fei Yi had personally arranged for Su Liaoting to be stationed in South Ning Prefecture. General Bailey had given the commander's tally to Su Liaoting in the morning, and the latter had personally presented it to His Highness Duke of Qin at noon to express his loyalty and plead for his acceptance. His Highness Duke of Qin only replied, "Give it to Bailey Yuan Long. Only he's qualified." Thus, the commander's tally returned to General Bailey's hands after going through the motions. His Highness Duke of Qin's 10 fingers didn't touch any authority or responsibility, but he had firm control over the entire south-central region. Over the past 10 days, Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma had been keeping an eye on South Ning Prefecture's affairs as well, including Muling. Unfortunately, father and son were powerless to interfere. To them, they should be thanking the heavens and earth that the Duke of Qin wasn't plotting against them. As Emperor Tianhui's illness grew more and more serious, Long Tianma had been itching to make a move. He wanted to send troops to West Jing, but feared the Chu clan's power. He'd instigated a few imperial sons and bribed capable officials from western Zhou to fight Chu Qingge to the death. Chu Tianyin assisted Chu Qingge while continuing to search for the western Qin imperial orphan. Unfortunately, he hadn't found any clues. 10 days passed by quickly. Mu Ling was about to arrive at Medicine City, while Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming had arrived as promised. This time, the old man and young man were much closer to each other than last time. Han Yunxi invited them to sit, but the lofty Xia Hongming actually waited for Wang Zhongyang to sit down before taking a seat himself. Han Yunxi couldn't help but chuckle to herself at his upbringing. Esteemed Wang Fei, this is the final result of our discussions. Please look it over. Wang Zhongyang presented a list with both hands, listing all of the Wang and Xia clan's low-grade medicinal ingredients and their prices. The Mu clan and Han Yunxi had agreed on 10 taels, while the Wang and Xia clans had offered 12 taels. Han Yunxi glanced at the list before saying, 2 taels higher. Esteemed Wang Fei, I won't hide it from you, but this is already the lowest price, Wang Zhongyang said seriously. Xia Hongming immediately chimed in, Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan's costs are much lower than ours. You know that as well. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed craftily before she asked lazily, how is it lower than yours? Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan's medicinal fields are the most fertile in Medicine City. They're using their power to suppress the pharmacist's wages, Xia Hongming replied hastily. I know all that. How much can these be worth? Han Yunxi asked unhappily. Xia Hongming felt helpless. Besides these reasons, he couldn't think of anything else. Unexpectedly, Wang Zhongyang lowered his voice and said, Esteemed Wang Fei, there's something. He trailed off, leaving Xia Hongming puzzled. They discussed everything before coming here. Was Wang Zhongyang still holding back? What was he trying to say? Long Fei Yi also looked over. Wang Zhongyang looked like he was in a dilemma. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one doesn't know if this is true or not, but there's no need to talk about something that you don't know the truth of, Long Fei Yi said. But Wang Zhongyang was in a difficult position. Xia Hongming couldn't take it anymore and kept shooting glances at Wang Zhongyang. Second Master, just tell us what you know. Esteemed Wang Fei will believe us. Only then did Wang Zhongyang open his mouth. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one heard a few years ago that the Mu family had experimented with a batch of high-yield herbs in northern Li's snowy highlands. They were considered low-end goods and could even survive in normal medicine fields. If this is true, then the Mu clan won't suffer a loss even if they sell it to you for 10 taels of silver. Everyone was shocked by these words, especially Xia Hongming. He blurted out, how could the Mu clan have gotten to the snowy highlands? This is also hearsay. I don't know if it's true or not, so this one doesn't dare to speak rashly. After all, This matter is complicated, Wang Zhongyang said in a low voice. There's no need to talk about hearsay with me. This Wang Fei only wants to know, is 12 taels your final price? Han Yunqi's tone became unyielding. Wang Zhongyang didn't say anything for a long time. Xia Hongming saw that the situation wasn't right and steeled his heart. Chapter 523. Xia Hongming sensed that something was amiss and told Han Yunqi, esteemed Wang Fei, this one has heard of the Mu clan colluding with Northern Li's imperial clan as well. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi exchanged meaningful glances at his words. Wang Zhongyang's lips curved up into a cold smile, but he was in no rush to speak. When Xia Hongming saw no response, he immediately added, this one found out a few years ago. The Mu clan has been lowering the prices of Cloud Realm Continent's medicinal ingredients over the past few years precisely because Northern Li's snowy highlands have produced a lot of high-yielding ingredients. Not only are they low-end, but they're also producing high-end goods at low cost. Esteemed Wang Fei, the Wang and Xia clans only have a few mu of land that's been passed down from their ancestors. They don't have many ingredients on hand, so if they keep lowering the prices, they'll really have no way to survive. Only then did Wang Zhongyang speak up. Esteemed Wang Fei, if we keep lowering the prices, the Wang and Xia clans won't be able to hold on. When the time comes, there won't be any more ingredients to supply. The losses won't make up for the gains. Han Yunqi nodded thoughtfully. The Mu clan is colluding with Northern Li. That's really surprising. Wang Zhongyang didn't speak, but Xia Hongming quickly added, isn't that so? When I first heard about it, this one was surprised as well. Actually, Xia Hongming had never heard of the matter at all. He was given a fright when Wang Zhongyang brought it up. But in front of Qin Wang Fei, he could only throw caution to the wind. Even if it was fake, he had to make it sound real. Otherwise, if Qin Wang Fei kept lowering the prices, it'd be hard for him to explain himself to the Xia clan. His father had almost crippled him for selling medicine at high prices in the black market. His father had already said that if they couldn't come to an agreement this time, there was no need for him to go back. Han Yunqi glanced at the list of prices again before nodding after some hesitation. Alright, this Wang Fei won't make things difficult for you. Let's just set the price. This Wang Fei will place orders based on needs every month. The goods will be delivered at the beginning of the month and settled at the end of the month. What do you think? Compared to the agreement with the Mu clan, these terms were much more lenient. Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming agreed immediately, and Han Yunqi had someone draw up an agreement. After signing it on the spot, she handed over the evidence of the black market's dealings with the two men. The two of them were overjoyed. After expressing their gratitude, they left happily. After returning to the inn, Wang Zhongyang was just about to speak when Xia Hongming beat him to it. Second master, there's something I need to ask of you. You don't have to be so polite with me. If you have something to say, just say it. Wang Zhongyang was very generous. Xia Hongming lowered his voice. Second old master, about what happened today. I have to report it to my father. Today's matter can be considered to have gone smoothly. You and I will be able to report back, Wang Zhongyang said with a chuckle. Xia Hongming hesitated for a moment and lowered his voice. Second master, where did you hear about the collusion between the Mu family and Northern Li? Wang Zhongyang was shocked and said in a panic, I didn't say that the Mu family colluded with Northern Li. I only heard that the Mu clan planted medicinal herbs in the snowy highlands, that's all. Didn't you say that they were colluding? If I didn't say that, would the Princess Consort have agreed so easily? Xia Hongming felt helpless. I thought you really did hear about it. Aren't you lying? If the Princess Consort and His Highness Duke of Qin hear about it, we. Wang Zhongyang's expression was anxious. We'll be in big trouble. Sure. Xia Hongming also became nervous. Second Master, let's take this matter seriously. No matter who asks, we'll say the same thing. The Mu family is colluding with Northern Li. This. Wang Zhongyang hesitated. Xia Hongming comforted him. This matter concerns both our futures. Second Master, why should you be soft-hearted towards the Mu family? Now that Mu Ling has fallen into my grandfather's hands, the Mu family's good days won't last long. Wang Zhongyang's eyes hardened as he said, fine. And so, the two of them came to an agreement. That day, Wang Zhongyang used the excuse that he needed to search for wild herbs nearby and didn't return to Medicine City with Xia Hongming. After Xia Hongming left, Wang Zhongyang secretly returned to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. When he entered, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were chatting with Elder Wang over tea. Second Master Wang was Elder Wang's younger brother and was considered a significant figure in the Wang family. It was precisely because of the black market incident that he lost face and couldn't raise his head in front of Elder Wang. Is everything done? Elder Wang asked, displeased. Second Master Wang resentfully replied, it's done. With Xia Hongming's mouth, House Lord Xia and Head Xia will definitely believe me. Elder Wang sighed. If we can topple the Mu and Xia clans this time, it can be said that your merits offset your faults. Second Master Wang didn't dare say anything else. He clasped his hands and withdrew. Your Highness, Mu Ling, will arrive in Medicine City in 3 days. According to the Council of Elders rules, she will be imprisoned in the Medicine Forest. According to custom, the Council of Elders will personally interrogate her as soon as she arrives and pass judgment after a vote. Unfortunately, Medicine City's decennial Grand Medicine Testing Convention is just a few days away, so the Council of Elders has plenty of work to do. Old Man reckons that Mu Ling's case will be delayed until after the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, Elder Wang said seriously. No matter. The more time passes, the more the Mu and Xia clans will fight over her, Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunxi wanted to save Mu Ling, but he wanted to use this chance to support the Wang clan so they could regain control of Medicine City. If he could take over Medicine City, then all of Cloud Realm Continent's southern regions would be under his control. Where will the Grand Medicine Testing Convention be held? Han Yunxi asked. It'll be held in the Medicine Forest. Esteemed Wang Fei, don't worry. Many members of the medical community will be invited to the convention, including all the major medicine merchants. The Council of Elders sent out the invitations, so Pill Fiend Pharmacy will probably receive them in a day or two, Elder Wang said with a smile. Medicine Forest. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed with calculation. What is it? Long Fei Yi asked. Nothing, it's been a while since I've been there, Han Yunxi grinned. As expected, Pill Fiend Pharmacy received an invitation from the Council of Elders 2 days later. However, they only invited Han Yunxi and His Excellency Pill Fiend to the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. They didn't invite Long Fei Yi. Although Long Fei Yi wasn't a member of the medical community, Long Fei Yi's status made it impossible for him to be left out. It was obvious that Head Elder Xia was holding a grudge and purposely didn't invite him. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was the one who'd offended them, not His Highness Duke of Qin. After flipping through the 2 invitations, Han Yunxi said regretfully, Your Highness, they didn't invite you, what should I do? Long Fei Yi wiped his sword expressionlessly as he replied, Your Lordship will escort you there. Is he really going to be a bodyguard now? Han Yunxi almost laughed out loud, but she pretended to be nervous and hastily bowed. This concubine can't afford it. Long Fei Yi finally looked up and patted her head as if he was petting a puppy. It's fine, this lordship is happy to do so. After saying that, he lowered his head and continued to wipe his sword. His serious expression left Han Yunshi at a loss for words. Long Fei, just then, did you, Countess sweet-talking? Why did Han Yunshi feel as if she had just eaten honey? The next day, Qin Wangfei set out for Medicine City under the escort of Guard Long. In Medicine City, after Mu Ling was locked up in the Medicine Forest prison, the tension between the three great clans and the various factions within the Council of Elders grew thicker and thicker. As soon as Mu Ling was locked up, the Mu clan's faction within the Council of Elders forcefully arranged for jailers to guard her. This time, Head Elder Xia was also very forceful and refused all of the Mu clan's jailers with the excuse of avoiding suspicion. Mu Yingdong was so angry that he smashed his favorite teapot in his study. Xia Dei, you've gone too far. Jun Xia domineeringly crossed his legs and arrogantly sipped his tea without saying a word. Mu Yingdong stepped on the shards on the floor and anxiously asked, Xia Dei still hasn't replied to you. What's the rush? The snowy plateau is such a great temptation and even you couldn't resist it, let alone him. Jun Xia disdainfully said. Mu Yingdong's heart felt stifled and he suddenly didn't know how to refute. Jun Xia was doing fine, so why was he insulting him? He couldn't help but admit that back then, he had colluded with Jun Xia and agreed to help Jun Xia grow poison in the poison pond in the Medicine Forest because he couldn't resist the temptation of the snowy plateau. When the Grand Medicine Testing Convention is over, he'll definitely make an appointment with this prince. Jun Xia was very confident and seemed to be in a good mood. He smiled and said, Mu Yingdong, how about we make a bet? Mu Yingdong didn't dare. Who knew what this guy would propose? He smiled and said, Your Highness Sanfua Duke is so confident, so this old man is also relieved. Old man is just afraid that Ling will suffer in the next 10 days. This girl, sigh, in the end, she's innocent. Mu Yingdong was still hoping that after Mu Ling married into Northernly, she wouldn't hold a grudge against him as her father. Father and daughter could mend their old relationship and work together to develop the Mu clan. After all, the Mu clan cooperating with Northern Li's imperial family was like asking a tiger for its skin. If Mu Ling could wholeheartedly side with the Mu clan when she became the crown prince consort, then he wouldn't be too restrained by Jun Xia. Jun Xia didn't have any compassion, especially towards women. Coldly, he replied to Mu Yingdong, It's not like she's going to die. What's the point of worrying so much? Mu Yingdong was about to persuade him when he changed the topic. I heard that the Council of Elders also invited people from Pill Fiend Pharmacy. They invited Han Yunshi and Gu Qi Sha. Xia Dei sure has guts. He didn't invite the Duke of Qin, Mu Yingdong said. Jun Xia's eyes flashed when he heard this. So even if Long Fei comes, he won't be able to enter the Medicine Forest. With the Duke of Qin's personality, he won't show up without an invitation, Mu Yingdong laughed. He was too happy to see Xia Dei offend Long Fei. While Mu Yingdong and Jun Xia were scheming, the Xia clan was also painstakingly scheming. You're saying that Mu Yingdong and Northern Li's imperial family have been in cahoots for a long time. Xia Dei received this news as soon as he returned to the Xia clan. Patriarch Xia's expression was grave. Father, regardless of whether this is true or not, we can't be careless. Why didn't you spread this news earlier or later? Why did you have to spread it now? Where did you hear it from? Xia Dei asked solemnly. The snowy plateau was too important to the Xia clan. He naturally wouldn't give it up so easily. That child, Hongming, told me. Patriarch Xia told him about Xia Hongming, Wang Zhongyang, and Han Yunshi discussing the price. Xia Dei was very surprised and immediately called Xia Hongming over. Is this true? Why didn't you mention it before? Xia Hongming had no idea that Juni Xia was discussing Mu Ling's marriage with Xia Dai. He and Wang Zhongyang had already agreed on a unified statement and were determined to slander the Mu clan in order to protect themselves. Thus, he said very seriously, "Grandfather, I only heard about this not too long ago. I heard it from the Mu clan at the Medical Materials Association. I didn't think much of it and thought it was just a joke. But when I went to Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Second Master Wang mentioned it. It's one thing for me to hear it, but even Second Master Wang has heard about it. This matter, there's no smoke without fire." Xia Dai's expression was complicated. After hesitating for a long time, he asked seriously, "How did Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi react?" Xia Hongming hurriedly replied, "They were very shocked. Qin Wangfei didn't believe it at first. Second Master Wang and I spent a lot of effort before she finally believed us and agreed to the price." Chapter 524. Once you tell a lie, you have to cover it up with countless other lies. Rather than calling this a theorem, it was more like a curse that no one could escape from. Xia Hongming could only continue to fabricate lies in the face of Head Elder Xia and House Head Xia's doubts. What do the Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei think of this matter? Head Elder Xia asked. The Duke of Qin didn't say a word. Qin Wangfei didn't believe it, but when she heard me and Second Master Wang say the same thing, she believed it and didn't say anything else, Xia Hongming replied. Head Elder Xia was still doubtful at first, but after hearing this, he believed it a little more. He thought that with Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi's shrewdness, they wouldn't casually express their opinions. Ming, who did you hear this from in the Mu clan? Is this news reliable? House Head Xia was very cautious. I heard it from Mu Chaoran's 2 lackeys. Father, it is better to believe in such things than not to believe in them. In my opinion, it's definitely true. Think about it, how did the poison pond in the medicinal forest disappear into thin air? Wasn't the Mu clan head in the medicinal forest the night the poison pond disappeared? And Northern Li's Duke of Kang is the sect head of the 100 Poisons sect. Don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? It could be said that Xia Hongming had racked his brains to make these 2 old men believe him. It was a fluke, and every word he said was quite convincing. Head Elder Xia and House Head Xia looked at each other nervously. In the end, they completely believed that the Mu clan and Juni Xia had been in cahoots for a long time. After Xia Hongming left, House Head Xia's first words were, "Father, you didn't refuse Ouyang Ningnuo, did you?" "Of course not. Do you think I've gone senile?" Head Elder Xia retorted unhappily. House Head Xia was resentful, but didn't dare to say anything. Head Elder Xia was silent for a moment, then suddenly slammed the table. That Juni Xia. He joined forces with Muing Dong to trick the old man. He wants to take Mu Ling back. Dream on. Father, in my opinion, Ouyang Ningnuo wants to marry Mu Ling, only because of her talent in medicine concocting. We have to teach Mu Linger a lesson first. Firstly, we can suppress the Mu clan's momentum before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention begins. Secondly, we can test Ouyang Ningnuo's sincerity. Old man sent people from the Lin family to guard the prison. President Xia sneered. The Xia clan head immediately understood. Not long ago, a concubine-born young master of the Mu clan had beaten up the Lin clan's only son until he was crippled. The Mu clan had paid a few silver taels and settled the matter. Now that the Lin clan had the chance, how could they let Mu Linger go? Before the trial of Mu Linger, no one had the right to punish her. The Elders Guild could only lock her up. If Elder Xia sent people from the Xia family to deal with Mu Linger, it would leave a weakness for the Mu family. When the trial of Mu Linger was in the future, the Xia family would not be able to take the lead. Instead, they would have to avoid suspicion. However, if he sent people from the Lin family, no matter what they did to Mu Linger, it would have nothing to do with the Xie family. Just as the father and son finished their discussion, an attendant came in with a report. Lord President, Northern Li's Duke of Kang is outside the city, requesting an audience. Elder Xie was about to refuse, but Xie family head said, "Father, the trial hasn't begun yet. Let's not alert them yet. Let's see what kind of tricks they have up their sleeves. If we can find irrefutable evidence of Mu Yingdong's collusion with Juni Xie, then the Mu clan. It'll be difficult to explain to Medical City." Elder Xie was very much in agreement. He ordered, "Tell the Duke of Kang that we'll discuss everything in detail after the Grand Medicine Testing Convention." He thought for a while, then said in a low voice, "Help me make an appointment with Ouyang Ningnuo. Before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention begins, old man must have a good talk with him." Xie family head was overjoyed and immediately went to do it himself. What should have been a foregone conclusion had been set in stone by Ouyang Ningnuo, Han Yunxi, and Long Fei Yi. Finally, Xie Hongming added fuel to the fire, turning the situation into a new one. Mu Yingdong and Jun Xie, the two masterminds behind the scheme, were now fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Even so, the two of them were still feeling complacent. After receiving Elder Xie's reply, Jun Xie didn't have any suspicions. He also hoped that this matter could be delayed for a few more days so that he could stay in Medicine City for a few more days. After all, he'd been confined to Northern Li's horse ranch by his master for the past few months. His entire body was growing moldy. He'd originally planned to take a trip to the poison pond in Medicine Forest, but his shoulder suddenly began to hurt again. Jun Xie had no choice but to return to the Mu clan. The poison in his shoulder was acting up more and more frequently. It was so painful that he had no choice but to use anesthetics to stop the pain. "Han Yunxi, once this prince takes over Medicine City, I'll make sure your pill fiend pharmacy suffers." Jun Xie swore in his heart. At that moment, Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi were riding on the same horse. While they were still on the road, she suddenly sneezed. Long Fei Yi immediately took off his cloak and wrapped it around her before pulling her into his arms again. "I'm not cold. I think someone's cursing me," Han Yunxi joked. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything at first, but after a while, he calmly said, "Han Yunxi, you must have offended quite a few people after entering the Duke of Qin's estate, right?" Han Yunxi wanted to correct him. She wouldn't have offended anyone just because she entered the Duke of Qin's estate. Marrying him would have offended people. "That's right, I've always offended women." Han Yunxi raised her head and asked seriously, "Your Highness, don't you think it's strange?" Long Fei Yi pretended not to hear and continued to stare straight ahead. Although his face was expressionless, it was clear that his face was stiff. Han Yunxi couldn't help but laugh. Long Fei Yi's large hand pressed her head into his chest. At that moment, the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Actually, Han Yunxi wanted to ask Long Fei Yi directly what he thought of all the women who liked him. However, she wasn't that gutsy yet. As the date of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention approached, people from all over the medical world began to gather in Medicine City. The city gradually became lively, but the prison cells in the forest were deathly silent. Aside from the jailers and additional personnel sent by the Council of Elders, no one was allowed to approach Mu Ling before the trial began. Every morning, when a beam of light shone through the small skylight into the dark prison cell, Mu Ling would place a pill in a white porcelain bottle. When she entered the cell, all of her belongings had been confiscated. She had only stolen a bottle of life-saving pills and an empty bottle. This was how she kept track of the days. She had already placed 13 pills in the bottle. 7 more would be the day of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, and those people would begin to judge her. No matter how they judged her, they wouldn't be able to kill her. As long as she didn't die, there was still hope. After the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, she would need to place another 70 pills in the bottle. Then, she would be able to make a trip to Pill Fiend Pharmacy and see Chi Brother. Before the small bottle could be filled, the door to the cell was suddenly kicked open. Blinding light flooded in, and Mu Ling instinctively squinted. Through the blurry light, she could make out a tall and sturdy figure standing in the doorway. Because the light was against her, she couldn't see the person's face. She only felt that he was unfamiliar and didn't seem like a jailer. Before Mu Ling could adjust to the light, the cell door was suddenly slammed shut with a bang. The room returned to its original dusky state, but Mu Ling was able to clearly see the person's appearance. It was a burly man in his 30s. His face was covered with a full beard, and his expression was fierce and fierce. Mu Ling was greatly uneasy. She immediately stood up and angrily asked, "Who are you? Who allowed you to come in?" The burly man smiled vulgarly, revealing a mouthful of black teeth. Mu Ling Hee, you really live up to your name. You're really beautiful. Mu Ling's entire body trembled. She subconsciously retreated and angrily said, "I'm warning you, don't come any closer. The Council of Elders hasn't interrogated me yet. Even if they do, if you dare to hurt me in the slightest, my Mu family will pursue this matter to the end." The burly man snorted disdainfully. "Hurt you? Do you have proof?" Mu Ling's face was ashen. Her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were all trembling. However, she had made a lot of progress in the past year as a fugitive. She immediately changed her words. "Who sent you? How much benefits did they give you? I can give you double." The burly man didn't answer. He only sneered and approached step by step. Mu Ling retreated step by step. Her mouth was trembling, but she still forced herself to speak. "I have a brand new prescription here. If you let me go, I'll consider you the one who developed this prescription. You can sell it to Mu Chaoran. He'll definitely give you the highest price in all of Medicine City. Also..." Before Mu Ling could finish speaking, the burly man was already in front of her. "Girl, if you can cure my nephew's crippled leg, perhaps I can consider letting you go." Mu Ling's heart almost stopped when she heard these words. This guy was from the Lin family. She wanted to escape, but it was already too late. The burly man grabbed her hair and pressed her head against the wall. Then, his large face leaned in with an extremely vulgar smile. He said, "Girl, if you lick this uncle a few times, this uncle will let you go. How about it?" Mu Ling was so disgusted that she couldn't stop vomiting. The burly man was unhappy. He was about to reach out with his other hand, but for some reason, both his hands and legs were in pain. It was as if thousands of worms were gnawing on them. He quickly let go and looked carefully. He discovered that there was a small worm wriggling on his arm. He was wondering where the worm came from when Mu Ling suddenly pointed at his beard and screamed. "Ah!" The burly man looked down suspiciously and saw a large mass of worms crawling out from his beard. Soon, several of them fell out from his hair. "Ah!" The burly man screamed in fright and fiddled with the worms with all his might. It would have been better if he hadn't done so, but as he fiddled with them, there were more and more of them wriggling around. He didn't know if they were trying to burrow into his skin or crawl out from his skin. How could the burly man still care about Mu Ling? He screamed for help as he ran out, not even bothering to close the cell door. Mu Ling was also scared out of her wits. She foolishly leaned against the wall, dumbstruck and her mind blank. The burly man ran out of the cell and screamed crazily. The prison guards all chased after him. Seeing this, everyone was scared out of their wits and no one dared to take a step forward. At this moment, a black shadow flew into the cell from behind them. It was silent and no one noticed. At this moment, Mu Ling, in the cell, had just regained her senses and was searching for her medicine bottle. The man in black was already standing at the door, but she didn't even notice. The man in black waited for a long time and finally became impatient. He asked in a strange tone, "Girl, why aren't you running away?" Chapter 525. Hearing this strange voice, Mu Ling's heart skipped a beat. She stared blankly at the floor, not daring to raise her head. Just now, did someone really speak? Or was it just her imagination? She seemed to have thought of something as her heart pounded wildly. She felt as if the entire world had fallen silent and she could clearly hear her own heartbeat. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. Mu Ling immediately raised her head to look, only to see that the cell door was empty. However, it didn't take long for several prison guards to arrive. Her originally bright and spirited eyes instantly became empty. No matter how the prison guards talked, pointed, closed the door, or locked the cell, she didn't even spare them a glance. She didn't even bother to look for the medicine bottle. She was like a deflated doll as she sat on the floor dejectedly with her arms wrapped around her knees. She was completely powerless. She knew that she had misheard. It was a complete auditory hallucination. "Little girl, if you didn't escape earlier, you won't be able to escape now." A low and deep voice suddenly appeared, and it was very clear, coming from the right side of her. This, Mu Ling jerked her head around. At first, she didn't see anything, but when she took a closer look, she saw a black figure standing against the wall, blending in with the darkness. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. "Chi brother." She almost shouted "Chi" out loud. Fortunately, she managed to stop herself in time. However, she couldn't hold back her tears and they gushed out of her eyes, falling one by one. "Chi brother, Ling misses you." Gu was dressed in a black robe, clearly Gu Qishao's disguise. Han Yunqi had told him to come as Gu Qishao, but he'd never do that. Although Mu Ling was a little silly, she wasn't stupid. What if she became suspicious? In the past, if she became suspicious, he would let her do as she pleased. However, things were different now. This girl was going to work in Pill Fiend Pharmacy in the future. If she found out that Gu Qisha was Gu Qisha, wouldn't she annoy him to death? Fortunately, Xia Dei was busy on the road and did not find trouble with Mu Linger, so he did not have to show up as Gu. Mu Ling stood rooted to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks. Gu Qisha couldn't be bothered to care about her. He walked around in a circle and found the small white porcelain bottle. "Little girl, catch." Mu Ling hastily accepted it, and she smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Your Excellency Pill Fiend." Her eyes were blurred with tears, but she was smiling brightly. The light from the skylight coincidentally shone on her face, illuminating both her tears and her smile. Unfortunately, Gu turned a blind eye to this beauty. He leaned against the wall and lazily sat down. "Girl, why do you fill that bottle with medicine every day?" Mu Linger was shocked. "How did you know?" "Sure." Gu Qisha was displeased. Mu Linger covered her mouth and waited for a while. When she saw that there was no movement outside, she sat down next to Gu Qisha and leaned against the wall like he did. She whispered, "Your Excellency Pill Fiend, how did you know?" "I've been guarding the skylight every day. How else could I have arrived at such a coincidence?" "Do you think you're lucky?" Gu Qisha asked in annoyance. Mu Linger secretly laughed at herself for being so stupid. Why didn't she notice that Pill Fiend and Chi Brother were so similar? However, she had never really interacted with Pill Fiend before. How could someone as smart as Han Yunxi not have noticed? She thought to herself, it's not that I'm stupid like Han Yunxi, it's that Chi Brother is so smart that he hid it well. If Han Yunxi, who had just made a vow, knew about this, she would probably laugh until her stomach hurt. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, are you here to save me? Mu Ling'er was very happy. You didn't run when you could have just now. Why should I save you? Gu Qi Sha snorted. Where can I go if I run? Hide for the rest of my life. I won't die anyway. That means there's still hope, right? Mu Ling'er said seriously. She had no idea that two major powers in Medicine City were eyeing her marriage. Prison couldn't trap her for the rest of her life, but her marriage could. Those people couldn't kill her, but they could make her life a living hell. Won't die. Gu Qi Sha muttered to himself, then suddenly laughed. Won't die because there's still hope. Ha! For some reason, Mu Ling'er felt despair from Gu Qi Sha's strange laughter. She didn't like this feeling. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, why did worms suddenly appear on that person's body? Did you use poison? She changed the topic. Han Yunxi gave it to me. It's called roundworm poison. Just a little bit will cause a swarm of worms to quickly grow in the body. Don't worry, in less than 2 hours, that person's internal organs will be completely devoured by the worms. As soon as Gu arrived in Medicine City, he received a message from Han Yunxi via messenger pigeon. She told him to use it to save Mu Ling'er. The way he used the poison wouldn't reveal his presence. Instead, people would suspect that Mu Ling'er was proficient in the art of poison and wouldn't dare to approach her. Han Yunxi is so scary. Mu Ling'er gave an objective evaluation. Gu laughed. So don't provoke her. Otherwise, you won't even know how you're going to die. Mu Ling'er couldn't help but tremble. Gu was secretly delighted. Mu Ling'er had a criminal record, so it was a good thing that she was afraid of Han Yunxi. There was no way he was going to tell Mu Ling'er that the roundworm poison was the most famous poison of the 100 Poison sect, not Han Yunxi's. Of course, Han Yunxi's poison was also powerful, but her ability to use it was terrible. If it was her who used the poison today, Mu Ling'er would have been bullied several times before she could succeed. Mu Ling'er felt a little guilty and avoided the topic. Seeing Mu Ling'er tightly clutching the medicine bottle, Gu asked curiously, Girl, what is this medicine for? Even if you're making medicine, you shouldn't mix it like this, right? He had been watching and guessing for several days, wondering if this little genius Mu Ling'er had discovered some new way to make medicine. Every day at dawn, she would put in a pill on purpose. He analyzed the time, temperature, humidity, strength used to hold the pill, and the material of the porcelain bottle. However, he still couldn't figure out why. He even observed Mu Ling'er put the pill into the porcelain bottle and shook it a few times. Unfortunately, there was no pattern to it. Mu Ling'er suddenly didn't know how to answer. Let me smell it, Gu said seriously. Mu Ling'er looked at his puzzled eyes and wanted to laugh, but she also felt a little uncomfortable. Chi brother, Ling'er isn't making medicine. Ling'er is counting the days. Mu Ling'er kept looking at Gu and didn't answer for a long time. Gu was a medicine fanatic, so how could he let her go so easily? He leaned closer and smiled slyly. It's a new formula, right? How about we make a deal? Mu Ling'er smiled bitterly. Lord Pill Fiend, I've been locked in here for so long that I don't know anything. I rely on this thing to keep track of the days. Every day when the sun shines in, I put in a pill. Before Mu Ling'er could finish speaking, Gu Qi Sha lost all interest and mocked himself, I'm overthinking it. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes to rest. Mu Linger looked at him and couldn't help but mutter, "Lord Pill Fiend, do you know why I keep track of the days?" Gu Qisha didn't answer and seemed to have fallen asleep. Mu Linger was too used to this attitude of his. In the past, he would always close his eyes and sleep when she would talk to him non-stop. In reality, he couldn't fall asleep. "I keep track of the days when I can go to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. I go once every 3 months, so there are still 77 days left before I can go," Mu Linger said with a smile. Gu suddenly opened his eyes and asked suspiciously, "Do you really want to go to Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Didn't this girl have no choice but to work for Pill Fiend Pharmacy because she lost to him? That's strange." "No, I want to see my Chi brother. Pill Fiend Pharmacy belongs to Han Yunxi, so my Chi brother will definitely go," Mu Linger said seriously. Gu Qishao immediately avoided her eyes, his heart breaking. "What the hell?" Unexpectedly, Mu Linger said, "Lord Pill Fiend, did you know that I like Chi brother?" Looking at Mu Linger's large, clear eyes, Gu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He felt as if something had pricked the softest part of his heart, making him feel very uncomfortable. However, this only lasted for a moment. He immediately laughed out loud and laughed for a long time before he glanced at Mu Linger and pretended to be clever. "Don't tell this daddy about love," whispering sweet nothings to each other, hovering between life and death. "This daddy is old and can't take it anymore." Mu Linger gritted her teeth and only replied with an "oh" after a long while. Just like that, the two of them fell into silence. However, Gu quickly left and hid himself in the darkest corner of the cell to sleep. He instructed Mu Linger, "Remember to leave some food for this daddy when you bring it over." Before he could find a chance to leave, he would probably have to stay with this girl. Mu Linger could still laugh. "Lord Pill Fiend, you're old and can't starve. I'll leave all of it for you." There were many ways to like someone. Some people demanded absolute fairness. "If I like you, you must like me. If I treat you well, you must treat me well." Some people blindly demanded, "No matter how I treat you, you must treat me well." And some people were willing to like you one-sidedly. "As long as I treat you well, it's sunny day. Chi brother, you're Linger sunny day." Mu Linger suddenly didn't want to leave. She hoped to be locked up in this cell for the rest of her life. Of course, this was impossible. The burly man sent by the Lin family had his entire stomach hollowed out by a poisonous roundworm. His death was gruesome. This matter was naturally concealed by the prison guards. They didn't spread it and reported it to Head Elder Xia. Head Elder Xia, the Xia family head, and the Lin family head arrived at the scene at the same time. When they saw the poisonous roundworm on the burly man's corpse, Head Elder Xia was shocked. "It's from the 100 Poisons sect." Although these people didn't understand poisons, they still recognized the most famous poisons of the 100 Poisons sect. The Lin family members were scared silly and blurted out, "Mu Linger is involved with the 100 Poisons sect." Head Elder Xia and the Xia family head looked at each other. After comforting the Lin family members, they ordered the prison guards to not spread the news and to immediately dispose of the corpse. "Father, Mu Dong's move is too ruthless. From the looks of it, Mu Linger and Juni Xia have been in cahoots for a long time. Mu Linger's provocation of Gu Qisha was a trap. They deliberately lured you over." The Xia family head said in shock. They originally thought that Mu Linger was only in cahoots with Juni Xia. They didn't expect that even Mu Linger's provocation of Pill Fiend Pharmacy was a trap. "Mu Dong. Do you think that old man is so easy to fool?" Head Elder Xia was thoroughly enraged. He originally wanted to wait for an opportunity to make a move, but in his anger, he decided to take the initiative to counterattack. The next day, for some unknown reason, he actually took the initiative to invite Juni Xia. Chapter 526. Dreamy Xia had just returned from the empty poison pond when he received Head Elder Xia's invitation. He immediately rushed to the Xia clan's estate outside the city. A servant led him into the guest hall, where Head Elder Xia had been waiting for a long time. Unlike Ouyang Ningruo's slow and modest approach, Dreamy Xia cut straight to the chase. Head Elder Xia, have you finally made up your mind? Head Elder Xia also nodded straightforwardly. This old man can agree to your request. However, you must give old man an idea as to what to do. What to do? To put it bluntly, it was about how to pressure Mu Ling, into marrying Northern Li's crown prince. Dreamy Xia simply said, make up for your mistakes. Head Elder Xia's eyes flashed with ridicule. What do you mean? During the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, this prince will represent Northern Li in proposing marriage to the Mu clan. The betrothal gift will be an admission token to the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain, one of Northern Li's 5 snowy mountains. Head Elder Xia, you can use this opportunity to pressure Mu Ling, to make up for her mistakes by marrying her off to Northern Li. As for the betrothal gift, it will naturally be accepted by the Council of Elders. The admission token to the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain will be jointly owned by Medicine City and managed by the Council of Elders, Dreamy Xia explained. Head Elder Xia sneered. The Xia clan was the one who got it, so why does it belong to the Council of Elders? The Tianxian Snow Mountain to the left of the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain will be used as a gift to thank Elder Xia. Dreamy Xia was in a good mood and chuckled. Head Elder Xia, this way you'll gain both fame and fortune. Head Elder Xia's arrangements for Mu Ling's marriage reflected his selflessness. He didn't make things difficult for Mu Ling, because of the infighting between the Xia and Mu clans. On the contrary, he was working for the benefit of all of Medicine City. This was fame. As for Dreamy Xia's additional benefits for the Xia clan, this was profit. President Xia stroked his beard and appeared to be deep in thought. In fact, he was secretly admiring Dreamy Xia for making such a good move. If it weren't for his grandson's words and the poison of the roundworm, he would have fallen into Dreamy Xia and Mu Yingdong's trap. Guild Master Xia pretended to be deep in thought for a long time before he spoke. Your Highness Majesty Kang's plan is brilliant, but... what is it? Just say it. Dreamy Xia said generously. It's just that Mu Yingdong is deceitful and unpredictable. I don't have full confidence that he'll agree. This matter. Old man would rather not do it. President Xia's attitude was very firm. The always confident Dreamy Xia finally frowned and bluntly asked, Xia Dei, isn't pressuring Mu Yingdong in public enough for the sake of the entire Medicine City? Where is your dignity as the president of the Elder Council? Guild Master Xia knew what was going on and wasn't provoked. His attitude became even more firm. Old man doesn't want to be bitten by Mu Yingdong at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. In short, this old man won't do it without full confidence. As he spoke, he stroked his beard and muttered to himself, without Mu Ling, the Mu clan won't be able to go far. My Xia clan has plenty of time to wait. A trace of impatience flashed through Dreamy Xia's eyes, but he still suppressed it and asked, what is considered full confidence? Difficult. President Xia sighed. That scoundrel Mu Yingdong is the most cunning person in Medicine City. Your Highness Kong Majesty, as for Mu Ling's marriage. In old man's opinion, it's best to forget about it. Aside from the marriage, everything else. We can discuss it. Dreamy Xia snorted coldly in his heart. If it weren't for Mu Ling, how could he have set his eyes on the Xia clan? With Xia Dei's cowardly behavior, it was no wonder that he couldn't expand the Xia clan. Although Mu Yingdong was a bit cunning, he still liked his boldness. Dreamy Xia pondered for a moment, then said coldly, Since President Xia wants full confidence, then we can only let the Mu clan benefit. Xia Dei snickered. How? The profound Sky Snow Mountain's gift of thanks will be shared between the Mu clan and the Xia clan. You and Mu Yingdong will each take a step back, Zhu Nixia said. That doesn't make sense. Xia Dei immediately refused. Zhu Nixia disdainfully mocked, Guildmaster Xia, there aren't so many advantages in this world. Since you don't want to take the risk or give up the benefits, then this matter is over. As for the rest, this prince has nothing to discuss with your Xia clan. Xia Dei was already overjoyed, but he pretended to be angry. Your Highness Duke of Kong, what kind of attitude is this? Zhu Nixia couldn't be bothered to explain and got up to leave. Guildmaster Xia hurriedly stopped him. Your Highness Duke of Kong, old man will agree. However, old man doesn't want to discuss this matter with Mu Yingdong face to face. Zhu Nixia was waiting for him to give in. He sneered, this prince will go and discuss it. Mu Yingdong hurriedly added, Your Highness Duke of Kong, after the discussion, it needs to be written in black and white and stamped with the Mu clan seal. Only then will old man feel at ease. Zhu Nixia really did agree. When he told Mu Yingdong about this matter, Mu Yingdong couldn't stop laughing. Just give it to him in black and white. This time, old man will make him fail miserably. Once Mu Ling successfully married into Northernly, the Mu clan would naturally have a way to force the Xia clan to give up the entire snowy mountain. The day before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, Mu Yingdong handed over an agreement to Zhu Nixia. Zhu Nixia handed it over to Guildmaster Xia on the very same day. Guildmaster Xia happily accepted it, but he sneered in his heart. This was a heavy piece of evidence. He was very much looking forward to the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Zhu Nixia and Mu Yingdong didn't know that Ouyang Ningrua was up to no good, nor did they know that Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi had already set a trap for the Xia clan. Mu Yingdong was still pondering whether Han Yunxi and Gu Qisha would play any tricks during the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Meanwhile, Zhu Nixia was busy preparing the marriage proposal ceremony. He was waiting for all the medical experts to gather the next day to publicly announce the marriage proposal. They were also very much looking forward to the show that would unfold at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Tomorrow was the day of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, so Medicine City was especially lively today. People from Medical City, the imperial physicians of each nation, and the famous medicine halls were all present. Those who were invited were naturally received by the Council of Elders. For example, the big shots from Medical City and the biggest medicine merchant, Ouyang Ningrua, were all personally received by the Council of Elders. They were staying in the Council of Elders guest rooms, which were the closest to the medicine forest. As for the others, the more famous ones were all taken away by the three clan heads. Even the less famous ones were warmly received by a few smaller clans who were willing to rope them in. As for Han Yunxi and the others, when Han Yunxi entered Medicine City with a black-clothed, masked guard, the news immediately spread throughout the city. Everyone knew that Pill Fiend Pharmacy's Qin Wangfei had arrived, but unfortunately, no one was there to receive her. The Wang clan naturally wanted to avoid suspicion, so the Council of Elders and the other clans. At this time, the bright moon hung high in the sky. Han Yunxi held the reins of her horse as she walked down the busiest street in Medicine City. The black-clothed guard followed behind her, keeping a distance of only 3 or 4 steps. He carried a long sword on his back and had his arms crossed in front of his chest. His tall and handsome figure walked behind the petite Han Yunxi like a towering mountain. No one dared to covet Han Yunxi in the slightest. As soon as Han Yunxi walked over, the people on the street all retreated. Some of them knew of Han Yunxi's identity, while others were intimidated by the guard's aura. Many people were amazed. Qin Wangfei really was different. Even her guard was so domineering. In short, Han Yunshi easily passed through the crowd and arrived at Medicine City's most luxurious inn. When she arrived, the innkeeper personally came out to greet her. "Esteemed Wang Fei, would you like a meal or a room?" Han Yunshi replied, "Give me a quiet and clean room. Send 4 dishes and a soup to my room." The innkeeper nodded repeatedly and was about to ask the masked guard behind her when the guard's eyes were cold. He ignored the innkeeper and followed Han Yunshi upstairs. The innkeeper was puzzled. Wasn't the guard going to stay? Generally speaking, the servant girls would enter the room to serve. If one brought a guard, the guard would stay in the room next to their masters and be on standby at any time. The innkeeper pondered for a while and finally decided that Qin Wangfei's guard was going to stand guard at the door. After the 4 dishes and soup were sent in, the masked guard closed the door and took off his mask. Who else could this most domineering guard in history be but His Highness Duke of Qin? Han Yunshi was starving. Just as she was about to eat, Long Fei Yi personally served her a small bowl of steaming hot soup. "Drink first." The weather was cold, her heart was warm, and her mood was good. If she hadn't personally experienced it, Han Yunshi would never have believed that the cold and aloof His Highness Duke of Qin could have such a caring side. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunshi wanted to say something, but hesitated. "What is it?" Long Fei Yi asked indifferently as he filled the bowl with soup. "You're quite considerate." Han Yunshi smiled. Long Fei Yi took a sip of the soup and coughed a few times before swallowing it down. He didn't answer her and pretended as if nothing had happened. He lowered his eyes and continued to drink. However, when he realized that Han Yunshi was still looking at him, he seemed to feel uncomfortable and said indifferently, "Drink the soup." Amen. Han Yunshi tried not to laugh, but she couldn't hold it in. She only took a sip before she choked and started coughing violently. Long Fei Yi hurried over and patted her back. Unfortunately, Han Yunshi choked too badly and the soup blocked her respiratory tract. She couldn't breathe and couldn't catch her breath. She wanted to cough harder, but unfortunately, it was difficult to breathe. She tried a few times but couldn't. Panicking, Long Fei quickly picked her up and had her sit on his lap. Then he leaned her body forward and patted her hard on the back. Han Yunshi coughed as she waved her hand. She choked, so patting her back was useless. Long Fei Yi didn't know much. He was just anxious at first, but now he was panicking. He kept asking, "Are you better? Are you better?" Han Yunshi couldn't answer. She coughed hard and waved her hand vigorously. Her face was red from congestion. Long Fei Yi was even more flustered. He had ways to deal with even the most important things, but he was helpless when it came to such a small matter. "Find a doctor." He carried Han Yunshi out the door. Han Yunshi was about to lose to this guy. She decisively grabbed Long Fei Yi's hand and pressed it against her chest. As soon as he touched her soft spot, Long Fei gave a start. Han Yunshi leaned forward with the help of his hand. When she leaned forward, Long Fei Yi's hand felt even more obvious. This was first aid. It was the most standard first aid treatment for choking. Han Yunshi didn't notice so much. She patted her back with all her might to signal Long Fei Yi to pat her back. However, Long Fei Yi didn't respond. Although he had bullied this woman before, he had never done it like this. Long Fei Yi was stunned. Han Yunshi couldn't wait. She could only lean forward and cough hard. Fortunately, she coughed out the soup after a while. She exhaled deeply and her breathing returned to normal. Chapter 527. Once her breathing became smooth, Han Yunshi finally felt better. She hurriedly got up and adjusted her breathing. Long Fei-yi only regained his senses when his hand missed. He ignored the reaction of his lower body and asked with concern, "Did you cough it all out?" Han Yunxi nodded as she adjusted her breathing. She was completely unaware that she had just been taken advantage of. First aid was too normal for her. Moreover, it happened to her in an emergency situation. How could she be aware of so much? After confirming that she was really fine, Long Fei-yi secretly exhaled, but his gaze unconsciously drifted to Han Yunxi's body. The scene at Jiangnan's Plum Sea hot spring unconsciously surfaced in his mind. His breathing became heavier. He had always known that although this woman looked petite, she was actually graceful and exquisite. Her curves were exquisite and beautiful. Han Yunxi was completely unaware of all of this. She drank a few mouthfuls of water to moisten her throat and said very seriously, "Long Fei-yi, let me teach you a first aid method." She stood behind Long Fei-yi and wanted to demonstrate, but then she realized that Long Fei-yi was too tall for her to reach. She could only choose another first aid method. She wrapped her arms around Long Fei-yi's abdomen from behind and let Long Fei-yi lean forward. She placed one fist between Long Fei-yi's navel and the lower part of his sternum, then used the other hand to grab onto the fist and quickly thrust it inward and upward. This is the first aid method when you're choking. What I just asked you to do is another method. I'll demonstrate it again. This was probably called teaching by example. Han Yunxi's expression was serious as she pulled Long Fei-yi's large hand to her chest and leaned her body. Place the heel of your other hand between my shoulder blades. Long Fei-yi did as he was told. Han Yunxi was very satisfied. Yes, right here. Then use all your strength to slap it. If you can't relieve it after 5 or 6 slaps, change to another method. Just as she was about to get up, Long Fei-yi asked, "Was the method Xiao Mama taught this prince wrong?" At this time, Han Yunxi remembered that she had choked on the lotus seed soup a long time ago. Granny Zhao had taught this guy how to clean her chest. At that time, she had been taken advantage of, so she didn't dare to make a sound. Suddenly, Han Yunxi seemed to have thought of something and looked down. Unfortunately, it was too late. Long Fei-yi's other hand circled around her from behind and placed on her chest, gently rubbing and pressing. Although he was nervous about the lotus seed soup, he knew Granny Zhao's intentions. But he didn't expect that this woman would teach him this time. "Han Yunxi, have you taught anyone else?" He lowered his head and his breathing became heavy. His hot breath and hoarse voice tickled her ears. Han Yunxi shivered and realized that she had invited a wolf into the house. However, she couldn't ignore his restless hands and her body trembled slightly. "Have you?" Long Fei-yi was serious. When it came to certain things, he was petty to the extreme. No, Han Yunxi replied honestly. Long Fei-yi didn't ask any more questions, but gently caressed her ear. His hands grew restless, as if he couldn't help but dote on her, or punish her on purpose. Waves of numbness made Han Yunxi tremble uncontrollably. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't control herself. "Yunxi," he called out softly as he held her tighter. She was entranced by his words, realizing for the first time that she was so close to this man. His delirious voice stimulated all of her senses, causing the last bit of restraint in her heart to crumble. She allowed him to caress her ear all the way down. "Long Fei-yi, we've finished the 100 steps together, right?" 100 steps. Long Fei-yi didn't know what that meant. Right now, his heart and mind were in a mess. His strong self-control had collapsed and all his misgivings were thrown to the back of his mind. He picked up Han Yunxi by the waist and strode towards the bed. But it was at this moment that someone knocked on the door. The rhythm of the knocking was very strong, clearly a secret signal. Long Fei-yi and Han Yunxi didn't notice because they were focused on each other. But the person outside the door kept knocking as if in a hurry. Finally, the sound pulled Long Fei-yi back from his delirious state of mind. He abruptly let go of Han Yunxi, his large movement startling Han Yunxi awake. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking didn't stop, but the two of them looked at each other in shock. He was shocked. He was shocked that he had lost control so easily this time and almost ruined things. She was shocked by his reaction. She was frightened by him. She pulled the silk blanket over her body and looked at him with furrowed brows. She was a little shy, a little angry, a little annoyed, and also a little reproachful. In short, her pink little face was like a color palette. This complicated expression made the nervous Long Fei-yi suddenly relax. He felt helpless, but he also wanted to laugh. He approached her and asked naughtily in her ear, "Don't you want to stop?" Han Yunxi was so embarrassed that she punched him on the shoulder and pushed him away. Naughty. Long Fei-yi loved her embarrassed and angry look, but he still took advantage of the situation to retreat and open the door. If he didn't open it now, the door would probably be knocked open. Seeing Long Fei-yi disappear behind the screen, Han Yunxi's heart couldn't help but feel a little empty. But as she thought about it, she suddenly laughed secretly. Knocking on their door at this time meant that it was either someone sent by the Wang clan or Gu Qisha. It must be something important. Tomorrow was the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. They had planted so many clues, but when it came to the most crucial moment, they were actually in an inn in Medicine City. Was she the bad one, or was Long Fei-yi the bad one? Long Fei-yi stood at the door for a long time without coming in. Han Yunxi waited in silence. She inadvertently glanced at the chastity mark on her arm. Han Yunxi was still a little nervous. She knew in her heart that this mark would disappear very soon. This mark had shocked many people on Fishery Island. She didn't mind being ridiculed or anything. She knew the situation between her and Long Fei-yi best. She liked the way she was now. She wasn't as careful in front of this man as before and could do as she pleased. Some things were consensual and didn't need to be forced. If he was naughty, then, let him be. Long Fei-yi, liking you is something to be proud of. I'm so glad that I didn't hide it and didn't miss it. Long Fei-yi stood at the door for a long time. By the time he came in, Han Yunxi was already dressed. From behind the screen, she could vaguely hear that it was about Ouyang Ningnuo. Someone from the Wang clan? She asked seriously. Yes, Ouyang Ningnuo checked into the Council of Elders yesterday. He had a secret meeting with head elder Xie last night, Long Fei-yi replied. Han Yunxi snorted. This guy is much more difficult to deal with than Juni Xie. Long Fei-yi's smile was even colder than Han Yunxi's. No matter how difficult he is, we still have to settle the score with him. Last time, Long Fei-yi hadn't tricked Ouyang Ningnuo for no reason. It was Ouyang Ningnuo's fault. He was clearly half a master of Sky Domain black market, but he didn't tell anyone about it. He wanted to use Long Fei-yi to deal with Beigong Heizei. How could it be so easy to take advantage of Long Fei-yi? This time, Ouyang Ningnuo seemed to have come to make a deal with Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but he was actually just here to deliver a message. He wanted to use them to deal with the Mu and Xia clans while he reaped the benefits. This time, Long Fei-yi was determined to make a thorough counterattack. Let's see if he dared to do it again. Rest early. I have to make a trip to the Wang clan. I won't be back so soon, Long Fei-yi said seriously. Han Yunxi nodded obediently. Her cheeks were still pink, but it was as if she hadn't lost control of herself earlier. Was she really going to pretend that nothing had happened? Long Fei-yi seemed a little surprised, but he didn't say anything else and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Han Yunxi suddenly grabbed his sleeve. Long Fei-yi, This time, Long Fei Ye's lips curved into a faint smile. He seemed to be very happy that she wanted him to stay. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said, "You haven't eaten yet. Eat before you leave." Long Fei Yi stared blankly for a moment, then chuckled. "All right, I'll eat with you before I leave." "What are you laughing at?" Han Yunqi asked faintly. "Nothing. Let's eat," Long Fei Yi said calmly. It seemed normal, and they didn't mention what had just happened. However, the two of them had a tacit understanding. Seeing that the food had gone cold, Long Fei Yi had the waiter change the table to a steaming hot one. Then he personally scooped out a bowl of soup for Han Yunqi. "Drink slowly." Long Fei Yi had already finished speaking, but added, "Don't choke again." Fortunately, Han Yunqi hadn't drunk yet, or else she really would have choked again. "Oh," she said, then silently ate. Long Fei ate quickly and didn't like to talk, so the two of them ate quietly as usual. But after a while, neither of them was willing to finish their meal first. Thus, the entire table was emptied. "Be good and stay here. Chu Shifeng and Tang Li are both nearby, so don't worry," Long Fei Yi murmured. Han Yunqi was very cooperative. If he'd known earlier, he would have secretly paid a visit to the Wang estate after reaching Medicine City. Plenty of people were keeping an eye on her, so she'd arouse suspicion as soon as she left. Instead, it was the decisive and direct Long Fei Yi who turned back for a second after leaving the inn. He muttered, "Yunqi, once we take Medicine City, I'll take you to Celestial Mountain." He hadn't planned to return to Celestial Mountain so soon, but now he wanted to get there as soon as possible so he could settle all his grudges. After confirming that Long Fei Yi had left, Tang Li and Chu Shifeng emerged from the walls of the inn. "Your master is dawdling more and more," Tang Li said objectively. No, he wouldn't dawdle if esteemed Wang Fei wasn't by his side. Chu Shifeng was even more objective. The two of them looked towards the rooms upstairs at the same time. Chu Shifeng smiled and said, "Young clan head Tang, you were right to run away from the marriage. Women can't be provoked." Tang Li chuckled. "Your mistress is the only one I can't provoke. The rest are fine." Apparently his fiancée's forces had been searching for him all over the world, but they hadn't found him yet. That meant they weren't very capable. Currently, Han Yunqi was smiling foolishly at the messy bedsheets in her room. It was unclear what she was thinking, but her smile was both silly and sweet. It was completely unlike her usual self. After washing up, she curled up in bed and let her mind wander into the detoxification dimension. It was the end of autumn and the beginning of winter, so the nights in Medicine City were especially chilly. She lay in the innermost corner of the room, leaving a spot for Long Fei Yi. She was so tired that she was about to fall asleep in the detoxification dimension when her eyes suddenly widened. "Where's that fellow, Gu?" A few days ago, she'd received news from Gu that he'd used up his poison roundworm and had already snuck into Muling-er's side. He was going to meet up with them tonight. It was already the middle of the night, but he still hadn't shown up. What was going on? Chapter 528. Han Yunqi thought carefully. If Gu had been discovered in his cell, the Wang clan would have at least sent a message. If he hadn't made a sound at a time like this, could something else have happened? With Gu's temper, he'd definitely show up at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention if he'd been invited. Currently, Long Fei Yi still hadn't returned, so Han Yunqi had no choice but to have Chu Shifeng ask around. Of course, Chu Shifeng didn't get any news, because Gu was currently squatting in his cell, staring at the moon through the skylight with a gloomy expression. Mu Ling-er was crouched by his side, admiring the moon instead of looking at it. Her face was filled with happiness, making it obvious that she was in love. Unfortunately, Gu wasn't looking at her at all. Ever since he'd used the roundworm poison, the prison guards and Lin clan members had been scared out of their wits. Aside from delivering food 3 times a day, none of them dared to take a step closer. If he'd known they were so cowardly, he would have gone to find Han Yunxi instead of coming in. Tomorrow was the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, but he still couldn't leave. He should have sent a messenger pigeon to Han Yunxi to let her know that he couldn't go, but Gu still hadn't done so. The Council of Elders hadn't invited Long Fei Yi this time. It wasn't easy for him to get a chance to spend some time alone with Poison Lass, so he really didn't want to miss it. He refused to believe that his luck was so bad. If he waited, perhaps he'd have a chance tomorrow. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, tomorrow's the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. If I wasn't locked up, I'd definitely be able to kill everyone in seconds. Mu Ling turned back, her bright eyes and white teeth shining in the moonlight as she smiled brilliantly. You're talking so happily. Gu asked doubtfully. Mu Ling restrained herself and made up an excuse. Of course I'm happy. If I don't participate, those useless trash from the Mu clan will have a chance to lose face. Hee, the Mu clan has plenty of trash, but so do the Wang and Xia clans. Without you, the Grand Medicine Testing Convention won't be interesting at all. Gu was very disdainful. Mu Linger was very happy to be praised. Just when she was about to be modest, Gu said, of course, without me, there would be nothing to see. Mu Ling giggled and took the opportunity to ask, Master Pill Fiend, can I learn medicine from you? Unfortunately, Gu wasn't polite at all. Give up. I won't accept a single disciple in this lifetime. As he spoke, he added, there is one person who can be an exception. Mu Linger was rather disappointed and muttered, I know who it is. Just as she was about to say, Han Yunxi, Gu said something else. He said, Long Fei Yi. Mu Linger looked up and was speechless. Just like that, Gu and Mu Linger chatted until daybreak. When Han Yunxi woke up, she found Long Fei Yi beside her. He wasn't completely lying down, but was half lying on the high pillow with his eyes closed to rest. He was dressed neatly, and it seemed like he had just returned. Han Yunxi was naturally concerned about Gu. She didn't know if that guy had come yet. Unfortunately, her heart was still biased towards Long Fei Yi. Seeing the weariness between Long Fei Yi's brows, she didn't have the heart to wake him up. She hoped that he would rest a little longer, even if it was just a little longer. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention would start in the afternoon, so it was still early. Han Yunxi carefully turned sideways and curled up beside Long Fei Yi. However, he quickly woke up and said indifferently, Still want to sleep? When did you come back? Why don't you sleep a little longer? Han Yunxi asked. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi said, It looks like Gu won't be coming. This prince will attend the Grand Medicine Testing Convention in his place. Did something happen to him? Han Yunxi was shocked. He's still in prison. Don't worry, he won't die. If something happened to him, Medicine City wouldn't be so peaceful, Long Fei Yi said. Won't die, won't die. It was just a casual way of saying things. Who would think about these 3 words for no reason? Han Yunxi hadn't paid attention to these 3 words. Last night, she had been thinking that Gu was most likely still in prison. Hearing Long Fei Yi's words, she was relieved. The Council of Elders won't agree to let you take his place. Cough, cough. You should just focus on your job as a bodyguard, Han Yunxi teased. But Long Fei Yi simply took out a large black robe and covered his head with it. In the end, he looked exactly like Pill Fiend. Even his height was about the same. After he returned from the Wang estate, Chu Shifeng had reported the news. Pill Fiend was happy to see Gu absent, so he ordered Chu Shifeng to find him a large black robe. As Han Yunxi's bodyguard, he could only stand far away from the viewing platform. Now that he'd come in place of Gu, he could sit with Han Yunxi. He would have to thank Gu for such a good thing later. Han Yunxi gave a start, then laughed out loud. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, long time no see. Long time no see. Long Fei Yi used his voice-changing arts, but his strange voice didn't sound like Gu's at all. That didn't matter, because he was only going to watch the show. He wouldn't talk much, but he'd already told Wang Gong everything he needed to tell him last night. Just like that, Gu still didn't show up in the afternoon. Long Fei Yi draped himself in a large black robe and openly walked with Han Yunxi to the entrance of the medicine forest. Under the guidance of an apprentice, they arrived at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. By the time they arrived, the convention was already packed with distinguished guests. This was a concentric ring of stairs, with a round competition stage at the bottom of the center. 2 medicine dispensing tables had already been placed on top of it. The first circle of spectators was filled with prominent figures, such as the Council of Elders, the heads of the Mu, Wang, and Xia clans, as well as the elders from Medical City. Han Yunxi was surprised to see that the only elder from Medical City was 5th Elder Lady Lianxin. It had been almost 2 years since they'd last met, but she was still as capable and sharp as ever. With Lady Lianxin sitting there as a representative of Medical City, the Mu clan's momentum grew even stronger. Sitting next to Lady Lianxin was a young man dressed in white with an extraordinary aura. He was none other than Ouyang Ningnuo. The two of them were currently chatting and laughing. It had to be said that Ouyang Ningnuo had a wide network of connections. Seated behind these important figures were the younger generation of Medicine City's various clans. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention was a competition for the younger generation, so anyone over the age of 25 wasn't allowed to participate. Further back in the circle were the other distinguished guests. There were people from Medical City, as well as people from various famous clinics and pharmacies. Although Pill Fiend Pharmacy had just opened, it wouldn't lose to any of the other pharmacies in terms of scale, reputation, and quality. Unfortunately, there were no more seats. For a convention like this, the first 3 rows of seats were arranged beforehand. The Council of Elders was clearly trying to intimidate them. This was probably the first time a big shot like Long Fei Yi had been neglected like this. Han Yunxi, on the other hand, was already used to it. She glanced back at Long Fei Yi and saw that he didn't have any objections, so she strode towards the 4th row. Long Fei Yi's black robes were especially eye-catching. As soon as they entered the hall, everyone turned to look at them. The two were used to being the center of attention, so they took their seats in a dignified manner. Even though they weren't sitting in the center of attention, they were still the center of attention. Lady Lianxin glanced at Han Yunxi, then gave Mu Yingdong a look. Mu Yingdong frowned in response. Only the two of them knew what this exchange meant. Once everyone had arrived, Head Elder Xia quickly announced the start of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention was a way to test an alchemist's comprehensive ability. Both sides would make their own medicine on the spot and let their opponent try it out. They would be asked to name the ingredients of the finished product. Sometimes, they would even ask for the exact amount of ingredients, water content, strength, heat, and so on. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention was held once every 10 years. If one wasn't a precocious child, then every alchemist could only participate once in their lifetime. 10 years ago, Mu Ling, who was still a child, took first place and caused a sensation in the medical world. The Mu clan also began to grow stronger at that time. This year, Mu Ling wasn't even 20 yet, so she could participate. Everyone thought that she would take first place this year, but who would have thought that Mu Ling would be locked up in a prison cell not far from here? Without Mu Ling, the competition would be much more exciting. The Wang clan's 4th young master, Wang Shuqin, was a young alchemist second only to Mu Ling. His popularity was extremely high, but 2 days ago, the Mu and Xia clans had announced that they could easily defeat Wang Shuqin. Even a few of the Mu clan's young masters had set up a public bet that Wang Shuqin would lose. This matter caused a lot of suspicion and jealousy. Everyone said that the Mu and Xia clans had hidden talents and would shock the medical world today. After all, 10 years wasn't a short time. It was enough time to nurture a lot of trump cards. The competition used an elimination system. After a few rounds of competition, Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi didn't pay much attention. They were both immersed in their own world. After all, their main purpose today wasn't to watch the competition. It wasn't until the Wang clan's fourth young master, Wang Shuqin, went on stage that the two of them perked up. Who knew that just as the Wang clan's fourth young master went on stage, a medicine boy ran along the aisle to the front. As he ran, he shouted, "Head Elder Xia, something bad has happened. Something bad has happened." This shout resounded in the silent venue. The people in the front 2 rows suddenly stood up. Everyone present was very surprised. What happened? What's all the fuss about? Head Elder Xia reprimanded sternly. "Sir Head Elder, outside, someone wants to barge in without an invitation. They've brought a large group of people with them," the medicine boy reported. "Impudence. Who has the guts to do this? Men, capture this old man. Once the competition is over, I won't let you off easily." Head Elder Xia was very imposing, but Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi only sneered. They knew what was going on. Ouyang Ningnuo was also smiling. He deliberately looked in Han Yunxi's direction, but unfortunately, Han Yunxi ignored him. Mu Yingdong knew best what was going on. He deliberately ordered his subordinates in a loud voice, "Send more people to capture them all. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention is a grand occasion for our medicine city. We won't tolerate such impudence." Head Elder Xia sneered, "House Lord Mu, this is the responsibility of the Council of Elders. There's no need for you to worry." Mu Yingdong ignored him with an indifferent expression. However, not long after the medicine boy left, he ran back. "Head Elder Xia, we can't stop them. Those people know how to use poison." As soon as he said this, everyone present was shocked. Mu Yingdong immediately felt uneasy. How could this medicine boy say that? Poison. Who are they? Head Elder Xia asked sternly. The medicine boy had already been briefed. He replied loudly, "The leader of 100 Poison Sect, Jun-Yi Xia." Chapter 529. The Head of the 100 Poison Sect. Hearing this title, the entire Grand Medicine Testing Conference went into an uproar. Mu Yingdong's expression was the most spectacular. Jun-Yi Xia had 2 identities. First, he was Northern Li's Duke of Kong, but in reality, he was the head of the 100 Poison Sect. What did the little assistant mean by choosing head of the 100 Poison Sect? On purpose. Could it be that Head Elder Xia had discovered something? Mu Yingdong looked suspiciously at Head Elder Xia. After a moment of hesitation, he decisively shot a glance at a nearby servant, telling him to hurry and warn Jun-Yi Xia that this could be a trap. It wasn't that he didn't dare to take the risk, but the stakes were too high this time. He couldn't afford to lose. At this time, Jun-Yi Xia, who was far away from the conference hall, didn't know what was going on inside. He only heard the hubbub of voices inside. His lips curled into a disdainful sneer. He thought that when he went in and announced the marriage proposal, it would be even more sensational than now. The 100 Poison Sect dares to behave atrociously in my medicine city. Bring him in and see what he wants. Head Elder Xia said loudly. The little assistant was about to leave and Mu Yingdong hurriedly stopped him. Wait, Sir Head Elder. The Grand Medicine Testing Conference cannot be cancelled. No matter what the Duke of Kong is here for, we can discuss it after the conference is over. Head Elder Xia glanced at the servant out of the corner of his eye and let him go. He bluntly asked, the Duke of Kong. Why is family head Mu so familiar with this poison sect head? Muingdong didn't want to pay attention, but in order to stall for time for the servant, he smiled and said, the Duke of Kong came to discuss the supply of medicinal ingredients with the Council of Elders, the Xia and Mu clans a few years ago. Sir Head Elder, you haven't forgotten, have you? Head Elder Xia didn't answer him and ordered the assistant, what are you waiting for? Muingdong didn't dare to say too much. He didn't know what was going on and what could be used against him. The servant also left for a while. Muingdong could only hope that he was in time to stop Juni Xia from coming in. Following the two's silence, the entire conference hall also fell silent. Those who were invited to participate in the competition were not ordinary people. In addition, the big shots in the first and second circle were silent. Who would dare to say anything? In the crowd, Han Yunxi crossed her arms and leaned against the back of the chair, looking at Muingdong with great interest. Long Fei Yi, who was sitting beside her, had his eyes closed in meditation. He had isolated himself from the tense atmosphere and formed a world of his own. However, today, this place was under his control. Before the servant Muingdong sent could reach the entrance of the hall, he was stopped by Guild Leader Xia's people. Since Guild Leader Xia dared to make the young medicinal apprentice call out the words, Sect Master of 100 Poison Sect, he must have made ample preparations. The little medicine boy arrived at the entrance of the hall and pretended to be respectful as he said, Your Highness Majesty Kong, the Council of Elders invites you in. Juni Xia waved his hand, and a group of servants dressed in festive clothes followed him into the long entrance of the circular hall. Everyone present turned to look. At first, it was very quiet, but as they got closer and closer, everyone could see more clearly. Gradually, the discussion grew louder. Juni Xia was dressed in the formal attire of a northernly prince. He was arrogant and domineering. It was obvious that he came as a northernly prince. Behind him followed 10 servants in a row. They were all dressed in red and carried large red gifts. The gifts on the gifts were all pasted with the word double happiness in red. This was completely the rhythm of a marriage proposal. What's going on? Why didn't the little medicine boy say anything when he came to report? The discussion grew louder and louder. Muingdong's expression was complicated. He couldn't help but feel that something was off about the timing. His heart was filled with suspicions as he kept shooting looks at Juni Xia, hoping to salvage the situation. But Juni Xia simply raised his proud head and strode onto the stage. Master of the 100 Poison Sect, you? Head Elder Xia asked. Juni Xia didn't think much of it when he heard this title. He only thought that Head Elder Xia wanted to make the act more realistic. He bowed and said, This prince has come today as a representative of the Northernly imperial family. Head Elder Xia, this prince greets you. Head Elder Xia disdainfully sized him up and didn't bother to be polite. Northernly's Prince of Kong, is it? Why have you come? Juni Xia loudly said, Head Elder Xia, I shouldn't have disturbed the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. However, this prince has been entrusted by the Northernly Crown Prince with a request. Does it have anything to do with my Grand Medicine Testing Convention? Why must you come at this time? Head Elder Xia was still annoyed. Juni Xia replied, It has nothing to do with the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, but it concerns the entire Medicine City. Thus, this prince has taken advantage of the fact that all the clans of Medicine City are gathered here today to make this request. This time, the crowd was puzzled and curious. How could this marriage proposal have anything to do with the entire Medicine City? What is it? Following Head Elder Xia's question, everyone quieted down and anxiously waited for an answer. My northerly crown prince has been in love with the 9th young miss of the Mu clan for a long time and has already obtained the emperor's approval. He wishes to marry the 9th young miss of the celestial peak Snow Mountain. Head Elder Xia was the first to be shocked by Junie Xia's words. He cried out in alarm, "What did you say?" Seeing Head Elder Xia's reaction, Mu Dong, who had been observing from the side, suddenly let out a sigh of relief. He sneered in his heart, "Xia Dei, oh Xia Dei, this old thing really knows how to put on an act." Mu Dong and Junie Xia had the same thought. They assumed that Head Elder Xia's previous attitude was just an act to avoid suspicion of his relationship with the 100 Poison sect. Of course, the ones who were truly shocked were the others present. Uproar broke out and the commotion far surpassed the previous one. It could be said that everyone was shocked and surprised. Isn't the 9th young miss of the Mu clan Mu Ling her? The celestial peak Snow Mountain as the betrothal gift. So extravagant. Is it the entire mountain? The Mu clan is rich. Mu Ling is guilty, she's not allowed to marry. Asking for Mu Ling hand in marriage was already very surprising, but using the Snow Mountain as a betrothal gift was simply unbelievable. However, everyone in Medicine City knew how important the Snow Mountain was to cultivating new and rare medicinal ingredients. No wonder Junie Xia said that this matter was related to the entire Medicine City. Even the weakest clan would rise to the ranks of the great clans in a few short years if they obtained the Snow Mountain's access token. They might even become the most outstanding clan in Medicine City. All kinds of voices rose and fell. Junie Xia was very satisfied. Only now did he look at Mu Dong. Mu Dong's doubts and worries were dispelled. He looked back at him and continued to maintain his composure. Seeing that Head Elder Xia's act was so real, Junie Xia was in a good mood. He deliberately said, "Head Elder Xia, this prince said that this prince is here on behalf of Northern Li's crown prince to ask for the 9th young miss of the Mu clan's hand in marriage. With the Snow Mountain as the betrothal gift, what, did I scare you?" Head Elder Xia sneered, "Northern Li's crown prince is very generous. However, Your Highness Duke of Kong should be asking for clan head Mu's hand in marriage. Why are you looking for old man? I heard that 9th young Miss Mu made a mistake and was imprisoned by the Council of Elders. Thus, this prince is here today in front of everyone to ask Head Elder Xia on behalf of Northern Li's crown prince. Please be magnanimous and release the 9th young miss." It was rare for Junie Xia to make such a request. Han Yunxi and Long Fei Ye's lips curled up at the same time. "Release her." Head Elder Xia stroked his beard and pondered for a moment. His attitude was firm. Mu Ling made a mistake and has been on the run for nearly a year. Her contempt of the Council of Elders is unforgivable. Everyone quieted down at these words. Junie Xia was also silent, waiting for Head Elder Xia to continue. They had previously discussed that Head Elder Xia would be the one to bring up the topic of atoning for her crimes with meritorious service. However, even after a long time, Head Elder Xia didn't say anything. Why didn't this old thing continue? What did he mean? At this time, a concubine-born son of the Mu clan suddenly stood up and shouted, "Elder Xia, how about Mu Ling, atoning for her crimes with meritorious service?" Junie Xia thought that this person had been arranged by Mu Dong, but Mu Dong was greatly alarmed and felt that something was wrong. "How can we atone for our crimes with meritorious service?" Head Elder Xia asked. "We can use her betrothal gifts to atone for our crimes with meritorious service. The Celestial Peak Snow Mountain will be jointly owned by Medicine City and the Council of Elders will be in charge of the cultivation and research of medicinal herbs. This can be considered our Mu clan's contribution to the world of medicine. How about it?" The concubine-born son answered so quickly that Mu Dong didn't have time to stop him. This sentence didn't raise any suspicions. How could the Mu clan be so generous as to give away their snow mountain so easily? Could it be that the northerly imperial family had given the Mu clan other benefits? Was the celestial peak snow mountain just to save Mu Ling? Mu Yingdong's expression suddenly changed. He couldn't care less about who had bribed this concubine-born son. He coldly reprimanded that concubine-born son, ignorant child, what right do you have to speak here? When these words came out, Jun Yixia was greatly startled. Only then did he realize that this concubine-born son wasn't ordered by Mu Yingdong. He looked at head elder Xia in shock. Head elder Xia was still very impolite. Your Highness Sanfua Prince, what do you think of atoning for your crimes with meritorious service? How could Jun Yixia answer? His eyes were gloomy, and he didn't say anything for a long time. Head elder Xia then questioned Mu Yingdong, Mu clan head, what about you? What do you think? Mu Yingdong didn't know how to answer. Although he was nervous, he still tried to think of a way to save the situation. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Head elder Xia was furious and said sternly, someone, bring that agreement to old man. Everyone was silent. No one knew what was going on. What agreement? Mu Yingdong and Jun Yixia's expressions changed simultaneously. If looks could kill, the two of them would be able to kill head elder Xia 1,000 times over. A servant presented the agreement with both hands and trotted over. Head elder Xia said coldly, read it out loud. The servant's voice was loud and clear as he read the agreement word by word. This agreement was signed by Jun Yixia and Mu Yingdong, and was handed to head elder Xia by Jun Yixia. The general meaning of the agreement was that Jun Yixia would publicly propose marriage with a snow mountain as a betrothal gift, and ask Mu Ling to atone for her crimes with meritorious service and marry the northerly crown prince. After the matter was settled, the northerly imperial family would give a snow mountain as a private betrothal gift. This was originally used by Jun Yixia and Mu Yingdong to trick head elder Xia, so that head elder Xia wouldn't worry. Who knew that it would become irrefutable evidence for head elder Xia to accuse the Mu clan? After reading the agreement, everyone present was stunned. They didn't expect that there was such an agreement hidden behind this matter. They didn't expect that the Mu clan would be able to get such a big benefit. Someone, pass down the agreement and let everyone see the Mu clan head seal on it. Head elder Xia's face was filled with righteous indignation. He actually revealed the whole matter of Jun Yixia bribing him. Even Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi were surprised. They thought that this old man would only use the agreement to accuse the Mu clan and wouldn't reveal the whole matter. As a result, Chapter 530. Now that head elder Xia had exposed the entire matter, he had offended Jun Yixia to no end. Although surprised, Han Yunxi quickly understood that head elder Xia had offended Jun Yixia for Medical City to see. Offending the 100 Poisons sect and even northerly country in order to curry favor with Medical City would do far more good than harm to solidify his position as head of the Council of Elders. It was killing two birds with one stone. Xia Dei was truly worthy of being the head of the Council of Elders. He wasn't simple at all. Moreover, he had Ouyang Ningnuo behind him, making him even more difficult to deal with. Han Yunxi whispered to Long Feiyi, let's not become the Xia clan's wedding dress. It was Han Yunxi who had exposed the collusion between Mu Yingdong and Jun Yixia to head elder Xia. If they couldn't topple the Xia clan in time, Han Yunxi would definitely cry. Long Feiyi glanced at her and whispered, just wait. Han Yunxi was reassured by His Highness Duke of Qin's words. She believed that the best part was yet to come. The agreement with the Patriarch's seal was passed around among the people present. When it reached Lady Lianxin's hands, she glanced at it before glaring fiercely at Mu Yingdong. Muing-dong stood rooted to the spot as if he had been struck by lightning. His face was so dark that it was almost charred black. He was so stiff that he couldn't move. Only his hands that hung at his sides trembled uncontrollably. His mind was blank and he still hadn't recovered from the shock. He had been suspicious of head elder Xie's attitude from the start, but he never thought that he would be played like this. Nor did he expect things to turn out this way. With such irrefutable evidence, how could he explain himself? How could he salvage the situation? He could only admit his mistake. Head elder Xie. Muing-dong suddenly cried out, Head elder Xie, this one was wrong. Completely wrong. It was all Dreamy Xie's coercion. This one was worried about my daughter and wanted to seek greater benefits for Medicine City. That was why I agreed to Dreamy Xie's request. Although this one has a private agreement with Dreamy Xie, this one has long planned that once Ling is married, the Snow Mountain will be given to the Council of Elders and shared by all the families in Medicine City. Such words were simply a joke. Who would believe it? President Xie was about to retort when Madame Lianxin stood up. Muing-dong, you're so muddle-headed. Even the people of Hundred Poison Sect can scheme against him. Dreamy Xie's face was already gloomy because of Muing-dong's counterattack. After being scolded by Madame Lianxin like this, his deeply chiseled face became even darker. However, he still didn't say anything. Fifth Elder, I was foolish. I deserve to die. However, I am also anxious to protect my daughter and the city. For the sake of the Northernly royal family, I sigh. Muing-dong looked like he couldn't explain anymore. It was too late for regrets and he slapped himself in the face. Madame Lianxin sneered, You've lived for so long and yet you've made such a grave mistake. Why don't you scram back home and properly reflect on it? She then turned to Elder Xie and said, Elder Xie, this is the venue of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Everyone is here to watch the competition. It's best if you don't spread Medicine City's dirty linen here. You can deal with it later. As for the people of Hundred Poison Sect, I believe that Medicine City is the same as Medical City. No one will welcome them, right? Madame Lianxin was worthy of being the daughter of the Mu clan, Muing-dong's third sister, and the only woman in Medical City's Council of Elders. With just a few words, she had protected Muing-dong, denied Dreamy Xie, and most importantly, used Medical City to pressure President Xie. First, they'd chase Dreamy Xie away and have Muing-dong return. Then they'd put the matter on the table. Once the Grand Medicine Testing Convention was over, there'd be plenty of room for discussion as to how the Council of Elders would punish Muing-dong. It had to be said that everyone present was rather disappointed. They had originally thought that there would be a good show to watch from the Mu clan, but now that Madame Lianxin, the fifth elder of Medical City, had stepped forward, Xie Dei had no choice but to give her face. Madame Lianxin was young and her medical skills were average, but she had climbed to the position of elder. Who didn't know of her methods in the medical academy? But unexpectedly, President Xie didn't give her any face and his attitude was unyielding as he got straight to the point. Madame Lianxin, this is Medicine City's internal affair. Whether Muing-dong can return or not is not up to you. Madame Lianxin abruptly stood up from her seat, clearly surprised. However, she quickly calmed down. President Xie, Medicine City's internal affairs are naturally not up to us Medical City's people to decide. I was only giving a suggestion. After all, I am the same as everyone else here. I was invited to watch the competition, not to see your Medicine City's dirty linen. TSK, just listen to what she said. Not far away, Han Yunxi couldn't help but want to clap. This president announces that the Grand Medicine Testing Convention will rest for an hour. Refreshments will be prepared in the venue, so please help yourselves. President Xie refused to budge an inch. Madame Lianxin clenched her fists, but there was nothing she could say. She could only bear this grudge in her heart. She didn't believe that the Council of Elders would kill Muingdong just because he had signed a private agreement. Who would leave when they said it was a break? Even Jun Yixia, who had been chased out twice, refused to leave. He coldly said, "Elder Xia, this prince has come as a representative of the Northern Li imperial family. I sincerely wish to promote marriage between Medicine City and the Northern Li imperial family. I didn't expect you to use this prince to get rid of your dissidents. Hehe, weren't you the one who wanted this prince to sign this agreement with the Mu clan head?" Jun Yixia was using his status as Northern Li's Qin Wang to propose a marriage for the crown prince. If he messed things up, he would have a lot of trouble when he returned to Northern Li. No matter what, he had to stay and fight for some justice. President Xia laughed heartily. "Jun Yixia, you're still pretending. Before you came to see the old man, you were already in cahoots with Muingdong. This was all part of your plan. President Xia, you need evidence to back up your words." Jun Yixia's voice was gloomy. Muingdong angrily said, "President Xia, you're slandering me. I was only muddle-headed when I agreed to sign that agreement with Jun Yixia. Before this, I wasn't familiar with Jun Yixia." Muingdong was several times more agitated than Jun Yixia. One had to know that the Council of Elders was only punishing him for signing a private agreement with Jun Yixia. However, if he had been in cahoots with Jun Yixia, then he had committed a grave crime. These were two completely different matters. President Xia sneered, "Men, bring out the evidence." Evidence. Han Yunxi was puzzled. Long Fei Yi was also watching with interest. It was already good enough that President Xia was using the marriage to suppress the Mu family. Where was he going to find evidence that the Mu family had been in cahoots with Jun Yixia? Who knew that when the evidence was presented, everyone would be disgusted? The evidence was actually a corpse covered in worms. Ouyang Ningnuo was the most exaggerated one. He actually ran from his seat in the first round to the third round and sat next to Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had a tacit understanding. They pretended that he was invisible and focused on the corpse on the stage. Two people at the scene discovered that the corpse was poisoned at the same time. One was Han Yunxi, and the other was Jun Yixia. As for Jun Yixia, he was very close to the corpse and immediately recognized that the worms on the corpse were his 100 Poison Sect's most famous poison roundworms. 100 Poison Sect did not spread this poison to outsiders and had strict control over it. Who poisoned it? This is the evidence. This is the prison guard who delivered the food to Mu Linger. Mu Linger attempted to use poison to force him to release her. Fortunately, the guards discovered her. According to Old Man's understanding, this poison originated from 100 Poison Sect, and it's not something an ordinary person could possess. May I ask, where did Mu Linger obtain this poison? Mu Linger is a pharmacist, so how could she know how to use poison? Asked President Xia seriously. This prince has never given Mu Linger any poison. Said Jun Yixia angrily. According to this president's understanding, this poison roundworm is unique to 100 Poison Sect, and it's never spread to outsiders. Jun Yixia, you said that this poison wasn't given to Mu Linger by you. Could it be that it was given to her by one of your subordinates? Jun Yixia didn't know what to say in response to President Xia's question. Han Yunxi was even more shocked than Jun Yixia. How did things turn out like this? Han Yunxi sat far away and couldn't see clearly, but the detoxification system had already given her the answer. It was a poison roundworm, but it wasn't the roundworm poison she gave to Gu. She had always been researching 100 Poison Sect, and had researched the top 10 poisons of 100 Poison Sect's poison ranking. She could basically write down the formulas based on the descriptions. However, she had never come into contact with those poisons, so the ones she made could only be said to have similar symptoms, but they weren't the real deal. The roundworm poison she made for Gu was the same. The symptoms of poisoning were very similar to the roundworm poison of 100 Poison sect, but there were still differences if one looked carefully. Not to mention other things, at least the roundworm poison she made would corrode along with the corpse within a day, while the 100 Poison sect's poison wouldn't. Not to mention the difference in toxicity, just the poison that Gu had used. In Gu's letter, he clearly said that he had poisoned the Lin family's burly man, so how did he become a prison guard? Han Yunxi immediately activated the detoxification system to conduct an in-depth examination, analyzing the time when the deceased had been poisoned. Who knew that the result would give her a fright? This deceased had been poisoned on the second day after the Lin family's burly man died, so someone used the real roundworm poison to poison the prison guard after the Lin family's burly man was poisoned. Who poisoned him? Where did the real roundworm poison come from? Han Yunxi originally faked the 100 Poison sect's poison to strengthen President Xia's heart, making President Xia believe that Juni Xia and the Mu family were in cahoots. She didn't want to provide evidence that Juni Xia and the Mu family had long been in cahoots. After all, their plan to suppress the Mu family had to be done step by step. If they suppressed the Mu family all of a sudden, the Xia family's power would increase. Once the Xia family's power increased, it would be even more difficult for them to get Mu Ling out. Moreover, there was a big difference between the Mu family and Juni Xia and Mu Ling and Juni Xia. Once Mu Ling became a scapegoat, she would definitely be blacklisted by Medical City in the future. How troublesome. Without a doubt, Long Fei Ye's plan had been completely disrupted. He narrowed his cold eyes and turned to look at Ouyang Ningnuo, who was sitting to the side. Ouyang Ningnuo's smile was very gentle and harmless. Han Yunxi was feeling gloomy when President Xia suddenly called out to her. Qin Wangfei, I've heard that you're proficient in the art of poison. Please come on stage and testify. Han Yunxi really wanted to cry. What should she do now? Esteemed Wangfei, President Xia is calling for you, Ouyang Ningnuo reminded her with a smile. Han Yunxi didn't want to pay attention to him, so she cast a questioning look at Long Fei Yi. Chapter 531. Long Fei Yi knew that regardless of whether Han Yunxi went or not, Juni Xia would have to admit to this irrefutable evidence and Mu Linger would have to take the blame. He had a nagging feeling that someone was watching him and Han Yunxi from behind the scenes, using them as both an excuse and a hindrance. Ouyang Ningnuo was the prime suspect since he'd had a secret meeting with head elder Xia 2 days ago. However, Ouyang Ningnuo and Juni Xia were on bad terms, so where did he get his hands on poison roundworm? Of all the poisons available, the 100 Poison sect had chosen to use Han Yunxi's poison roundworm. There was no doubt that they were aware of Gu's movements in the prison. Could it be that he'd underestimated this weak merchant? What was the meaning of using the same poison roundworm? Was he trying to provoke them? Regardless of whether or not Ouyang Ningnuo was the mastermind, they'd met their match this time. Although their plans had been disrupted, Long Fei Yi remained calm and collected. The show in Medicine City had only just begun, so no one knew who would emerge victorious until the very end. Long Fei gave Han Yunxi a reassuring look and signaled her to sit down obediently. There was no need to give him face. Han Yunxi's thoughts were similar to Long Fei Ye's. Mu Linger would have to suffer for the time being. Despite her displeasure, she didn't want anyone to laugh at her. She remained calm and composed as she replied lazily, Head Elder Xia, this Princess Consort is even more unfamiliar with the poisons of the 100 Poison sect than you are. How could you know that it's poison roundworm? This Princess Consort still hasn't been able to identify it. Quite a few people laughed at her sarcastic remark, but Ouyang Ningnuo's smile was the most charming of all. Head Elder Xia had suffered a setback and decided not to provoke Han Yunxi. He'd long since made preparations and invited over a poison doctor from Medicine City. The doctor confirmed, Head Elder Xia, this is indeed the poison roundworm unique to the 100 Poisons sect. Juni Xia, Muing Dong, what else do you have to say? Guild leader Xia questioned in front of everyone. Juni Xia clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He knew that after he returned to Northernly, he would have to face a lot of trouble. However, at that moment, he was most concerned about the corpse and the poisonous roundworms. Regardless of who had poisoned him, the poison of the roundworm had to have come from his 100 Poisons sect. Just who was the person behind the scenes? How could their hands reach so far into his 100 Poisons sect? If his master found out about this, he would be in even more trouble. Juni Xia. Head Elder Xia's sudden shout pulled Juni Xia out of his thoughts. What are you plotting with Muing Dong against my Medicine City? Juni Xia was a loser, but he didn't show the embarrassment of a loser. He was still as arrogant as ever as he asked domineeringly, so what if this prince and Muing Dong have long been friends? This prince doesn't care about your Medicine City's internal strife. This prince will ask one last time. Northernly is willing to use the Snow Mountains as a betrothal gift to marry Mulinger. Will Medicine City agree or not? Agree. This was the unanimous thought of countless Medicine City disciples present, but who dared to say it out loud? It wasn't that Head Elder Xia didn't covet those Snow Mountains, but in order to completely topple Muing Dong, he had long since endured the pain. My Medicine City will never collude with the Poison sect. From now on, if you dare to take even half a step into Medicine City, we will not be polite. Head Elder Xia angrily declared. This was a barring order. In order to issue a barring order, everyone in the Council of Elders had to agree. Head Elder Xia didn't ask for anyone's opinion and directly said it. However, none of the elders present dared to raise any objections. At this point, even Lady Lianxin didn't say anything. Who else would dare to speak up? Xia Dei, you. Juni Xia was furious. Scram. Head Elder Xia didn't budge an inch. How could Juni Xia have the face to stay? He snorted disdainfully, kicked away the ceremonial pole that had been placed to the side, and left with a flick of his sleeves, leaving behind an incomparably arrogant statement. Medicine City better not come begging this prince for help one day. In less than 3 years, Juni Xia had been banned from both Medical City and Medicine City. It could be said that there was no precedent in history and no precedent in the future. If he returned to Northernly this time, the Northern Dynasty's emperors probably wouldn't forgive him. Of course, Juni Xia didn't immediately return to Northernly. He first made a trip to the 100 Poisons sect. But that was a story for another day. As soon as Juni Xia left, Muing Dong's trial began. Muing Dong, you colluded with Juni Xia in an attempt to exonerate Mulinger from her crimes. You were selfish and almost destroyed Medicine City's reputation and future. If we hadn't seen through your schemes, the consequences would have been unimaginable if Medicine City had fallen into the hands of the 100 Poisons sect. Head Elder Xia angrily rebuked. What else could Muing Dong say? Juni Xia had just acknowledged their friendship. He, Muing Dong, had been a wise man his entire life with limitless glory. Under his leadership, the Mu clan had reached unprecedented heights. If he had succeeded today, the Mu clan would have become the Lord of Medicine City in less than a year. Unfortunately, he was too impatient and careless. He had completely lost. It could be said that his success was due to Mulinger and his failure was due to Mulinger. He couldn't wait to tear that damned girl to shreds. Even now, he still didn't understand what was wrong with that damned girl back then. Why did she side with Long Fei Yi at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet? If that wasn't the case, he would have already married Mulinger, to the northerly crown prince to gain more benefits from Junyi Xia. Despite his resentment, he could only helplessly plead for leniency with Lady Lianxin. Lady Lianxin originally wanted to lower her status and plead for leniency on behalf of the Mu clan in the name of Medical City's Council of Elders. However, head elder Xia kept mentioning the 100 Poison sect, making it difficult for her to speak. Although she had a lot of authority in Medical City, the 100 Poison sect was a taboo for the esteemed head elder. She didn't dare to touch on it lightly. Faced with Mu Yingdong's disappointed gaze, Lady Lianxin couldn't help him even if she wanted to. She could only avoid his gaze. Mu Yingdong's heart practically died when he saw Lady Lianxin avoid him. He lowered his head and remained silent. He wasn't going to beg head elder Xia for mercy. Pleading with your opponent won't earn you any sympathy, much less respect. You'd only be laughed at. He understood this principle. Never show mercy to your opponent. Otherwise, there will come a day when you become the loser. Head elder Xia understood this principle. Men, take Mu Yingdong away and await his punishment. Revoke the Mu clan's qualifications to participate in the competition. Before the Council of Elders officially judges them, no one from the Mu clan is allowed to take half a step out of Medicine City. Head elder Xia loudly declared. Everyone present lowered their heads. As for the other clans, no one stepped forward to plead for leniency. Elder Wang glanced at Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi. Seeing that the two masters were still unmoved, he didn't say anything either. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention was supposed to be a stage for the various clans to compete with their true abilities. However, it had turned into a show of intrigue and intrigue. The crowd below the stage all sighed. Amidst the boos, Mu Yingdong was taken away. Everyone was still immersed in the earlier incident, but the situation in Medicine City had changed greatly. With the Mu clan's defeat, the Wang and Xia clans were the only opponents in the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, and even in the future. There was no doubt that the battle for the position of Medicine City's ruler would only intensify. Amidst the sighs, most of the people were deep in thought. At this time, head elder Xia loudly said, "Men, set the stage again. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention will continue." After discovering such a big matter, head elder Xia didn't even need to rest. He actually wanted to start the competition right away. Han Yunxi had thought that the Grand Medicine Testing Convention would be postponed until the next day. Now it seemed that the Xia clan had come prepared. They wanted to complete the convention in one go and steal all the limelight. Most of the Mu clan's people had already left. Lady Lianxin was still very magnanimous. She acted as if nothing had happened and returned to her seat. She took a few sips of tea and prepared to watch the competition. Han Yunxi saw this and felt admiration in her heart. She decided to find a chance to ask Lady Lianxin some questions before she left. Everyone was ready for the start of the competition, but Ouyang Ningnua was still sitting by Long Fei Ye's side. He had no intention of returning to his seat. "Your Excellency Pill Fiend, do you think fourth young Master Wang can take first place?" he asked in a low voice with a smile. Long Fei Yi didn't reply. "Your Excellency Pill Fiend, why didn't Medicine City invite you to be a judge?" "You're the authority in this field," Ouyang Ningnua asked next. Long Fei Yi didn't reply. None of the aristocratic families in Medicine City can compare to you, Pill Fiend." As Ouyang Ningnua spoke, he turned to face Long Fei Yi and said seriously, "Your Excellency Pill Fiend might as well seriously consider cooperating with Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. If you have any conditions, feel free to raise them with this one. This one will definitely do my best to satisfy you." Long Fei Yi still didn't say a word. At this moment, the Wang clan's fourth young master, Wang Shuqin, returned to the stage. Only then did Ouyang Ningnua pay attention to the stage instead of annoying Long Fei Yi. The Grand Medicine Testing Convention was important to begin with, but the Mu clan's defeat only made it even more crucial. This was because the official showdown between the Wang and Xia clans would begin with this competition. Leaving aside the extravagant rewards and the right to take over the Council of Elders' land and medicine storehouses, the competition would have a huge impact on the hearts of the people. Once the decennial Grand Medicine Testing Convention ended, it was time for the Elder Council to elect the elders and deacons. Elder Xia hadn't reached the age of retirement yet, so he naturally wouldn't retire. However, a few of the 7 elders in the Elder Council had to retire. Moreover, the Elder Council's punishment for the Mu clan would definitely remove the Mu clan from the Elder Council and deacons. At that time, no matter if it was the position of elder or deacon, there would be vacancies. Once the time was up, elections would be held to test the hearts of the people. Would they choose the Wang clan or the Xia clan? In Medicine City, where alchemy reigned supreme, the younger generation was very important. Whichever clan produced geniuses, talents, and young alchemists would become the future rulers of Medicine City. Wasn't Mu Linger the reason why the Mu clan had received so much support in the past? Or perhaps it was because of Mu Linger. Now, the same logic applied. Today, whoever emerged as the winner of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention would have the upper hand in the showdown. As soon as the competition began, the crowd tensed up and watched intently. Wang Shuchen was the Wang clan's trump card, and he didn't disappoint. He stood there for a full 4 hours and defeated almost all of the competitors, including many famous disciples from the Xia clan. However, in the end, a young disciple from the Xia clan named Xia Peng stepped up. He was only 10 years old and was the youngest of the competitors today. The crowd was shocked by the appearance of this child. Many people had speculated that the Mu and Xia clans were hiding powerful people to deal with the Wang clan's 4th young master. Each clan had a limited number of participants. How could such a young child compete if he didn't have outstanding abilities? Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi, who had always been confident in Wang Shuchen, also paid attention to the competition. Chapter 532. Wang Shuchen and Xia Peng's competition was about to begin. The two of them stood on opposite sides of the stage with their eyes covered and their backs facing the stage. Medicine City's Grand Medicine Testing Convention was known for its fairness. Every part of the competition was designed to avoid any possible cheating. The participants were required to use the ingredients provided by the Council of Elders to concoct a medicine on the spot. Even the ingredients provided by the Council of Elders were chosen at the last minute. Therefore, it was unlikely that the participants were cheating or the Council of Elders was going easy on them. Of course, no matter how fair the rules were, there was one thing that couldn't be avoided: luck. Before the disciples of each family came to participate in the competition, the top pharmacists in the family would secretly teach them some of the best prescriptions that had never been made public. If the herbs needed for the prescription were all in the list of herbs provided by the Elders Guild, then it would be a stroke of luck. One had to know that a top-notch recipe required several pharmacists to research for 1 or 2 years. With the experience and skills of these young participants, it was impossible for them to concoct a top-notch recipe in such a short amount of time. By this time, the stage had been cleaned up and an apprentice brought in a large basket of ingredients. May the Wang and Xia clans each send one person to provide the others ingredients, the Master of Ceremonies announced. In other words, they would take 30 types of medicine from the large medicine basket provided by the Elders Guild and provide them to the other party. This step was very crucial as it directly determined what medicine the other party could and couldn't concoct. As soon as the Master of Ceremonies finished speaking, the Wang and Xia clan heads stood up at the same time. The atmosphere immediately became tense as everyone craned their necks to watch. The Wang and Xia family patriarchs were extremely fast. In just a few moments, they had picked out 30 different herbs and handed them to the Master of Ceremonies. The Master of Ceremonies recorded the herbs one by one and sent Elder Wang's herbs to Xia Peng's table, while Xia family patriarch's herbs were sent to Wang Shuchen's table. The two sets of ingredients were written on a large white board on the stage for everyone to see. Only Wang Shuchen and Xia Peng couldn't see them. Once the ingredients were announced, the crowd grew even quieter. Everyone who was at the convention was an insider and more or less knew the ropes. Everyone began to ponder how to concoct the ingredients. Needless to say, it was very difficult. Of the 30 ingredients that Elder Wang chose for Xia Peng, at least 20 of them couldn't be used together. Their medicinal properties would repel each other and affect their efficacy. Xia Peng had to either use the remaining 10 or find a way to destroy the repulsion between the medicinal properties. The Xia family's patriarch had given Wang Shuchen 30 types of medicines, on the contrary, 20 of them had to be shared. As long as the opponent tested one of them, he would know the remaining 19. Wang Shuchen could only use the remaining 10 herbs. There was no doubt that the less medicinal ingredients one used, the easier it would be for the opponent to find out. Han Yunxi stared at it intently, her brows furrowed slightly as if she had discovered something. Long Fei Yi and Ouyang Ning Nuo were completely clueless about this. Wang Shuchen and Xia Peng turned around at the same time as the Master of Ceremonies announced the start of the competition. They saw the 30 types of medicinal herbs placed in front of them. Wang Shuchen glanced at it and knew what to do. He immediately picked up the brush and started to draft the prescription. Xia Peng, on the other hand, didn't do anything. He just looked at the herbs. The entire arena was silent. Time slowly passed. The competition only had the time for an incense stick to burn. If one couldn't concoct the medicine, they wouldn't even need to test the medicine. They would be judged to have lost. Although it was a medicine testing competition, it first tested one's ability to concoct the medicine. This competition was truly a test of one's ability. Just like a duel between martial arts experts, both sides didn't make any big moves. However, the competition had already begun, and everyone could only see 1 or 2 moves in the competition. Soon, half of the incense stick had burned. Wang Shuchen was still scribbling furiously on the paper while Xia Peng was still staring at the herbs. Based on the current situation, Xia Peng seemed to have the upper hand. The elders began to whisper to each other. Who's going to win? Long Fei Yi couldn't help but whisper. Last night, he and Elder Wang had planned to let Wang Shuchen feign defeat and let the Mu and Xia families fight to the death. Who knew that the Mu family wouldn't even be qualified to participate in the competition? Based on the current situation, Wang Shuchen had to win. Otherwise, they would really end up benefiting the Xia family this time. It's a little complicated. Let's just wait and see. As soon as Han Yunxi finished speaking, Wang Shuchen abruptly stopped writing. In a flash, all the spectators grew nervous. Even the Council of Elders stopped whispering to each other to look intently. Without a doubt, Wang Shuchen had concocted the prescription. Wang Shuchen's white robes were whiter than snow. His every movement had a scholarly aura that couldn't be ignored. He calmly handed the prescription to the MC and began to prepare the herbs. Although there was a small screen between the two tables, Xia Peng couldn't see Wang Shuchen's table. However, he could hear Wang Shuchen's movements. However, he didn't expect this 10-year-old child to be so indifferent as he continued to stare at the herbs in deep thought. It had to be said that this kind of attitude made many of the elders present admire him. Unlike the battle between Mu Ling and Gu Qisha, Wang Shuchen's process could be roughly seen. Of course, they only had a rough idea. Soon, Wang Shuchen had concocted a thumb-sized pill and handed it to the MC. At this time, Xia Peng still hadn't moved. The incense stick beside him was about to burn out. Could it be that Elder Wang's herbs were making things difficult for Xiapeng? The quiet guild master gradually began to discuss. The elders also began to whisper to each other. Elder Wang stroked his beard and waited. The Xia family head smiled, not in a hurry. Although there was a lot of discussion, at first, everyone thought that Xiapeng was the grand finale and wouldn't be unable to concoct the medicine. They thought that he would amaze everyone with a single brilliant feat, but Xiapeng was deep in thought and didn't move. Even when the incense stick was about to burn out, he still didn't move. Even if he were to start concocting the medicine now, it would be too late. There wasn't enough time left. How could this be? Was this the person that the Xia family brought as the grand finale? Could it be that the Wang family won so easily? The crowd gradually became restless. Everyone was in disbelief. The elders and the VIP seats were also in a heated discussion. The elders were well aware of the herbs that Elder Wang had concocted. Although the 30 combinations were tricky, it wasn't to the extent that they couldn't concoct a single medicine. What was wrong with Xiapeng? Is this a trap? Long Fei Yi whispered. That's strange. Han Yunxi muttered to herself. At this moment, the two of them, like everyone else, were staring at the incense stick on the stage, waiting for it to go out. Unexpectedly, the silent Xiapeng suddenly raised both of his hands. Everyone was shocked and their eyes all focused on Xiapeng. They saw that Xiapeng's movements were very fast. After a few movements, a complete pill was lying in his palm. This speed, it's even faster than Mulinger's. It's almost on par with His Excellency Pill Fiend. How shocking! The noisy venue quieted down. Everyone looked at each other in disbelief. It wasn't easy to master this skill. Elder Xia and the Xia family head looked at each other and smiled in satisfaction. The grand finale of the Xia family must amaze everyone. The Wang family head looked at the remaining herbs on Xiapeng's stage and seemed to have discovered something. He suddenly gasped. Only then did Xiapeng write down the prescription and present it to the MC. When the MC saw the prescription, his hand trembled and he almost dropped the medicine. What kind of medicine did Xiapeng concoct? The screen separating Wang Shuqin and Xiapeng was removed. When the two met, Wang Shuqin stepped forward and bowed elegantly. Who knew that Xiapeng would raise his eyebrows and look at him with disdain? Rude kid. He only knows how to play tricks. What's there to be arrogant about? Fourth young master, don't lower yourself to the kid's level. Below the stage, the Wang family people were indignant. Wang Shuqin didn't say anything and returned to his seat calmly. Unexpectedly, Xiapeng sneered, I never bow to a loser. He's not worthy. At such a young age, he was so arrogant that even Elder Wang frowned and was unhappy. No matter how elegant Wang Shuqin was, he couldn't keep his face after hearing this. He said coldly, the outcome hasn't been decided yet. Do you dare to make a bet? Xiapeng asked loudly. Before Wang Shuqin could answer, he said again, if you lose, you have to call me grandpa. As soon as he said this, everyone laughed. Below the stage, someone from the Xia family shouted, Little Peng, then won't the Wang family head call you father? Bang! Elder Wang slammed the table in anger. He asked angrily, Elder Xia, are we still going to continue this competition? Not far away, Ouyang Ningnua laughed loudly. Lord Pill Fiend, you weren't as arrogant as this kid when you were young, right? The outcome hasn't been decided yet, and you're already acting like this. If he really wins, he won't look down on you, right? Long Fei Yi ignored Ouyang Ningnua. Seeing that Elder Wang couldn't keep his cool, he knew that things weren't going well. Of course we're going to continue. How are we going to decide the outcome if we don't? Although the bet didn't go through, Elder Xia's words were full of sarcasm. The MC handed Wang Shuqin's pills to Xia Peng, and Xia Peng's pills to Wang Shuqin. He also handed the 2 prescriptions to the Council of Elders. For a moment, everyone below the stage and on the stage were nervous. The elders of the Elder Council looked at the 2 prescriptions with strange and solemn expressions. On the stage, the real competition began. Wang Shuqin was seriously testing the pills. He weighed them, observed their color, smelled them, and tasted them. He sliced them, crushed them, and dissolved them in water. He tested them in all sorts of ways and made notes as he tested them. There was a lot of information to be recorded, such as the type of medicine contained in the pills, their respective weights, the order in which they were mixed, the amount of water used, the strength used, and the effects of the pills. Wang Shuqin was so focused that he ignored everything around him. However, the crowd's attention wasn't on him, but on Xia Peng. Xia Peng took a small bite of the pill and placed it in his mouth. As he chewed, he made notes. He looked very casual and relaxed. The duration of the competition was also the time it took for an incense stick to burn. This time, Xia Peng quickly handed over the prescription, but Wang Shuqin was still hesitant. At first, his notes were smooth, but later on, he kept changing them and couldn't be sure. Time waited for no man. Gradually, Wang Shuqin grew anxious. He looked up at the incense stick several times, anxious and nervous. At that moment, the Council of Elders finished reading Xia Peng's prescription. It was exactly the same as the one Wang Shuqin had given them. Xia Peng's prescription is correct. The MC announced loudly. Wang Shuqin was even more anxious. He wrote a few more notes and gave up. I've lost. As soon as he said that, the crowd went into an uproar. Although there wasn't much time left, Wang Shuqin wouldn't admit defeat so easily. Admitting defeat and losing were 2 different things. What was going on? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.